Good morning.
Good morning.
Today is Monday, January 28th, and this is the Cosmetology and Barber Examiners Board Complaint Committee meeting. And I want to welcome everyone that's here. I'm going to turn it over to our litigating attorney, Ms. Pamela Spicer, so we can start.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
This is the complaint committee meeting. We have, looks like 73 complaints. And I do want to let the committee know that I anticipate probably at least around 80 complaints, assuming that the level of complaints that are coming in remains the same. Since we're now doing quarterly meetings, obviously the legal report will be larger. So I want to let you all know that. And then I did notice this morning, as many times as I've looked at this, I still caught a typo number 70 on the recommendation. It should be authorized formal hearing. On my copy, it says there's a typo on formal.
Oh, the L. Got it.
Yes. Other than that, I don't have any particular complaints to point out this morning, but I'll be happy to answer any questions that you all have about any of the complaints.
I think on there's a couple of cases, number 3 and number 6 that I see, and that are involving this San Diego Beauty College and Atlanta Beauty Academy. Is that some of the California group that we're starting to pick up, or is that a different scenario?
I discussed this with Roxana. We talked about it, and on these particular ones, let me look. For number 3, and Roxana can speak to the specifics about the California school, the status of that. But for number 3, the person wasn't licensed and wasn't at the salon, so that's why I recommended closure, and I'll let her speak about the school. And on number 6, we spoke about that, and she came in through reciprocity. I don't think there were any issues at the time with her licensure.
And as far as the school in California, that is one of the schools that California flagged from the beginning. It's still where the hours are not being accepted.
That person is no longer employed at the salon, so.
Correct.
Okay.
On number 6, yes.
Did you have any other questions?
Well, on that very first one, case number 1 about the student working in the salon without supervision, it's hard to do anything with those if we don't find them in the shop whenever we come by. But that kind of thing troubles me quite a bit.
So the only thing we could do on that, of course, we've already sent the inspector out, so I don't know if you want to send the inspector back out again. It may be difficult to track down the student based on.
Was that a consumer complaint or?
Yes,
okay.
It would have been.
Thinking maybe perhaps have the inspector drop by one more time, kind of randomly.
And any time that I recommend closure with a request for an inspection, it's always random.
Looking for the complaint where the shop had applied for a shop license but hadn't received it yet, but was operating.
Let me see if I can find it.
Of course, I can't find out what number it is.
It could be number 12. That one and see if that's the one.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. I guess my question was the shop open and there were services being performed?
Based on the consumer complaint, likely. I would have to double check again and report back to you at the full meeting, because I wouldn't want to necessarily go on the record saying that until I look back at the consumer complaint again, especially given the numbers of complaints. But I can look at that again to make sure whether they were actually open with customers or just the shop appeared to be open but no customers present.
I just couldn't
of
remember,
course-
I guess, for context, if we had fined other shops in the past. I know there's always confusion when you open a shop about what steps you have to take, and I totally get it. Just want to make sure we're following what we've done in the past.
Okay, I'll look into that and then report back at the full meeting.
Thank you.
Pamela, on case 23 about the school release and transfer hours, I think that's exactly the right thing on that one. The
Which number?
case 23.
Okay.
The receiving school has the authority to either receive or not. And
$46, do we know, is that through an inspection that we found out that the respondent did provide the services that weren't authorized, or going on the complaint?
I'll look into it, but normally, if I don't say there was an inspection, there wasn't one, and we would be basing that on the complaint. And if I've made this recommendation, likely there was enough information in the complaint, but I'll look into that one as well, just so we're sure. See what they said specifically in the complaint.
I don't have any questions at this time. Did y'all have any more?
I'm going to be fine with the rest of this, although I'll say case number 61 seemed a little unusual.
I will say I thought so as well. So when you first read the complaint, this obviously sounds horrible, but the respondent, as I stated, provided affidavits from employees. So, you know, if I was to try to litigate this, I probably would have an issue. I mean, the affidavits were spot on, saying that none of this ever happened, specifically, you know, detailing hours, the kits, the financial aid issues, denying the other allegations. And of course, as you see, the school was recently inspected in July, and the complaint came in not long after that.
We're good? Okay.
And just to recap, I'll look into numbers 12 and 46, and then change number 1, the recommendation to include a request for inspection, and fix the typo on number 70.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And we will start right at 10 o'clock. We will vote on Robert's Rules of Law early on, and we're looking into possibly needing to vote on chair and vice chair as well. So, but until 10 o'clock, thank you, and we'll be back. Thank you, sweetie.
Good morning, Frank.
Morning, Frank.
Thank you. Good morning.
This meeting of the Cosmetology and Barber Board of Examiners is called to order. We'll do just a couple of housekeeping things here. We'll need to start off with a roll call, I believe. And since we're on the phone, do we have to?
Yes, I'll make sure to get the number. Thank you very much. And today is Monday, January the 28th, and we are starting with the Cosmetology and Barber Examiners full meeting. If I could start with Ms. Kelly Barger, and she is not here with us today. Ms. Anita Charlton.
Present.
Mr. Frank Gambusa.
Here.
Ms. Wyvette Granger, not here yet, but I believe she is joining us. Mr. Ron Gillahan.
Here.
Ms. Judy McAllister.
Present.
Ms. Janie Ross.
Here.
Thank you. Ms. Becky Russell.
Here.
Ms. Mona Sappenfield.
Present.
Thank you. Ms. Amy Tansley.
Present.
Thank you. Ms. Nina Coppinger.
Present.
Ms. Patricia Richmond Parson. Ms. Patricia Richmond.
Present.
Thank you. And Ms. Brenda Graham was not going to be able to join us, so I have her absent as well. And Ms. Janie Ross, did I go ahead and call you? I did. Okay, so we have quorum and can proceed. Thank you, sir.
Okay, great. We're going to take just a minute to follow our custom of recognizing our schools that are here. I believe we have White House. Could we have somebody from your school stand up and tell us who you are and why you're here? Thank you, folks. Thank y'all for coming. Mr. James? Any other schools here? Okay. We have, let's see, do we want to go ahead and do Robert's Rules or minutes first?
If you would, and I apologize for not actually putting them on the agenda, we're going to need to have a motion to follow Robert's Rules of Law, and then after that, vote a chair and vice chair for the 2019 board meetings.
You have a motion?
I make a motion we adopt Robert's Rules of Order.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Motion carries. Okay.
Thank you. And next on our items to do once a year, we would need to have a recommendation for a chair, and we can start with that first and then vote on. And this would be a chair for our board meeting as of today and for all of 2019, and then we'll need a vice chair. And if whoever wants to make a recommendation, you can do both if you choose. But
This is Patricia Parsons. I recommend Ron Gillahan to be chair again.
Second that.
I have a motion for Mr. Ron Gillahan to chair the board and a second with Ms. Judy McAllister. I will do a roll call on that. Ms. Anita Charlton,
Yes.
Mr. Frank Gambusa,
Yeah, why not?
I'll skip Mr. Ron Gillahan since we do have quorum. It's Ms. Judy McAllister,
Yes.
Ms. Janie Ross, Ms. Ross, if you are able to vote for chair for Mr. Ron Gillahan. Okay. We might have lost her. I'll continue.
No. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now. Are you voting in favor, Ms. Ross?
Absolutely. Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Becky Russell,
Yes.
Ms. Mona Sappenfield,
Yes.
Ms. Amy Tansley,
Yes.
Ms. Nina Coppinger,
Yes.
and Ms. Patricia Richmond.
Yes.
Thank you. So we have Mr. Ron Gillahan as chair, and we will need a motion for a vice chair for 2019.
I make a motion to nominate Miss Becky Russell.
I second.
I second that.
Okay, I've got. I have Ms. Tansley recommending for vice chair, Ms. Becky Russell, and a second from Judy McAllister. I will do a quick roll call, and if anyone has anything else, then we can add, but otherwise we would be done. Ms. Anita Charlton?
Yes.
Mr. Frank Gambusa?
Yes.
Mr. Ron Gillihan?
Yes.
Ms. Judy McAllister?
Yes.
Ms. Janie Ross?
Yes.
Ms. Russell, I'll skip you since we do have quorum. Ms. Mona Sappenfield?
Yes.
Ms. Amy Tanksley?
Yes.
Ms. Nina Coppinger?
Yes.
Ms. Patricia Parsons?
Yes.
Thank you. So we have Robert's Rules of Law taken care of, and we have a chair and a vice chair. Thank you very much.
Congrats, Rebecca.
Congratulations
Thank you.
both.
The next item of business would be the approval of the December 10th, 2018 minutes. Are there any additions, corrections, or deletions? Hearing none, do we have a motion?
Make the motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed say no. Motion carries. Okay.
Thank you. If the board will, we might be going a little bit out of order on the agendas that you have for today. The next item will be a continuing education course, but Mr. Gillihan is going to need to leave us fairly soon. Had something come up, so if it's okay, we would like to skip to under the appearing before the board. Masters Barber College is having a school extension on your iPads that is listed on page 57. If we could skip to this. This isn't really a change in licensure. It isn't anything the board has to approve per se. It's more an informational piece since it doesn't impact the public or the square footage on services provided for the public. I'll give you a minute to look at that, and then Mr. Gillihan will turn it over to you to explain it to the board so we make sure to not miss you before you leave.
While you're looking at those things, what this is, our school has been in the same location for 14 years come this February, and we've had an opportunity to access some additional space that connects to our school. We've decided that we want to move our offices next door into a larger space. It's an additional 1,450 square feet. It's completed office space, and there's space for additional classrooms and such. We don't anticipate doing any clientele in that space at this time. If we do, we would come back to the board and do the appropriate changes at that time. But for now, it'll be office space and classroom for our students.
What do we need to do?
The way we handled the extension last year is we went ahead and did a motion and a second simply for the board to know that the school has additional space, but not necessarily needing to do an inspection. Now, we can, out of courtesy, if the board likes, send an inspector to look at it, but the floor plan and everything that's been sent is a total of 1,450 added square feet that has to do with more educational.
Make a motion to approve?
Yes.
I make that motion.
Second.
If I could, who did the second?
I did.
Oh, Judy, thank you. Thank you.
We have a motion and a second to approve this request. Any other questions or discussions? I will say that I did submit the updates on catalogs and enrollment agreements and everything to the board also. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carries, and thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you. That will bring us back in the order that we normally follow. And the first thing that we have appearing before the board is on your iPads on page 3. And this is TSU's instructor courses. The Avon Williamson campus session is now presenting before you for the 2-day session. Miss Tiffany Terrell is appearing before the board. Give me a moment to ask her to come up. Just make sure that's okay.
Good morning, Ms. Terrell. Thank you for being with us today.
Good morning.
And this session is scheduled for August 11th and 12th of 2019 are the dates that they are asking for. And so I'll let you review. And it's been a pleasure working so far with Ms. Terrell and seeing that she's here to meet the board members and go through our curriculum and information. So I know she's wanting to make great things happen there.
ASU always does a wonderful job on these programs. I know we have the addition of several other continuing eds across the state now, and I noticed that last session the attendance was down a little bit from where I've seen it in the past, but I anticipate that's going to be pretty high this year. So I enjoyed the program last year. We discussed a couple of things regarding whether it's appropriate to offer any items for sale at the end of the sessions. So I think rule says that we can't have anything for sale during the programs and educational portions of this. And I think we understand we shouldn't be doing that sort of stuff. The breakout sessions last year were excellent sessions.
We would need a motion to approve them for those dates and that time. And if you have any questions for Ms. Terrell, I'm sure she'll be happy to answer.
Motion that we approve the dates in the program.
I second.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Okay. Motion carries.
Thank you very much for being here.
Congratulations.
Appreciate it. Congratulations.
Good luck. I'll see you then.
Next, we have KINCC Education Group. This is Ms. Kimberly Anderson appearing before you. This is a new request for 2 different session dates in the Memphis area, June 14th and 15th, and August 9th and 10th. If you have any questions, I'll let you review.
Roxana, these dates don't conflict with any of our other classes.
No, they do not. Not so far.
Pardon me. I would on the dates for August. The dates were actually supposed to be that Sunday and Monday, so that date is actually incorrect. And TSU has just been approved for that date. So the alternative date would be the 24th and 25th of August, please.
Thank you.
Thank you. And the June stays as is, the 14th and 15th?
Yes,
Thank you.
please. Thank you.
On the groups that are meeting more than once, I know we've kind of talked about this. I was able to do a webinar presentation for Shelby County High School that went really well. I'm going to pose that as an option to our groups that are smaller in numbers and appearing more than once. Just from a cost perspective, we just can't travel or expect PSI to travel to all of them. So just something to keep in mind. So I'll definitely connect with them and see if that is a possibility. The other thing that the board has done when a group has been brand new and asked for 2 dates, sometimes they've only approved 1, and pending a board member attending that session and being okay with it, the second date's been released. You don't have to do it either way. That's just what we've done in the past. Just something to think about as you're considering the dates.
So the dates you picked are Friday and Saturday in both months?
Ma'am, they're both Sunday and Monday. Are my dates not correct?
I don't think so. You
Okay.
say June 14th and was it?
15th, 14th and 15th.
Yeah, June 14th and 15th. That's actually Friday and Saturday. And August 24th and 25th is a Saturday and Sunday.
Okay. Let me look at the dates again. I'm sorry.
No.
Bear with me.
And what we can do is, now it'd be the April session. If the board isn't comfortable with this, it can be represented in April, or you can approve one of them.
Okay, June is the 15th. I'm sorry, the 16th and 17th. And August is the 24th and 25th.
Saturday and Sunday.
th and 26th. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Do we have any other questions?
I make a motion to approve at least one of them. June or August, it really doesn't matter, but at least one just to see how it works.
We do the June since it's the first, and she'll have the opportunity to do the second.
I think so.
The motion would be to approve for the June 16th and 17th with provisional for the August class.
Yes.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that. That's a good idea.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed say no.
Just make sure you get the dates corrected. June 16th and 17th.
Now, I just have a thing before we lose Ms. Anderson. The board meets in June, but then you don't meet again until August. So if we only approve one session for this year, she may really not have time to advertise or do anything for August. It really would be too late because you're not going to meet in between. That's the dates are too close to each other, and you won't be meeting to be able to hear a board member comment and give their information. So she either has just one meeting, I believe, or we approve both, simply from the realistic perspective of having the board meet again and she have time to market, so she's not incurring an expense with a room and all that for the August. They're too close in time.
It's in the same city as the other one that we approved for August.
One isn't. CSU is where?
Here in town.
Here in town. No. So it's not in the same.
Okay.
Mm-mm.
So for her to approve for both of them, we need to go ahead and approve both of them because we will not have a meeting, right?
That is correct. We don't meet in July, so it would be June and then August.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
To speak?
Okay, so we have just approved for the first meeting. So if we want to do the second one at this time, we'd have to have another motion. There's also the possibility that she might change her dates. I don't know how locked in you are to your locations. We're trying to make sure that your programs are going to be suitable and also give you the opportunities to do what you want to do.
Say something.
Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to say that for the last 2 years I have done this as an educator under another group, and I have been teaching over 20 years, if that helps any.
Okay, with that being said, with us meeting only in July and you have been in this group, another group doing the same thing, and you're an educator for 20 years, I think that I want to make a motion to approve the August dates as well.
Can I ask one more question?
Yeah.
You've been licensed for 20, you say, or teaching for 20?
I've been teaching since 2004.
And how many times have you done seminars before?
I've done these seminars, I've done them for 2 years.
And I think my biggest concern always with a new group is just understanding that when we approve it, that these dates actually happen. As you know, people, once they commit to you, they plan on that weekend, and if the date is canceled for any reason, they're in a bit of a pickle. So I guess my question, or my only concern, is that if we approve both dates, that you've got both dates secured, you've got rooms secured, and that these dates go off without a hitch.
Okay. The other alternative is I do have another date for Memphis in case that Memphis date was not approved. So I do have another date in mind. Let me check it first before I blurt it out.
Are there a minimum number of students that you need at either of these events?
Well, at this point, this is my first time doing it on my own, so I'm prepared to do it no matter what the number is. Because I'm very passionate about education. I'm very passionate about this industry, and I do think there is a greater need for education from a process improvement perspective for our instructors. So I'm really willing to do it regardless of the number of people. Of course, I'm hoping for a large number and a great outcome. However, because I'm so passionate about it, I am willing to do it with the minimum number.
You're saying you'll absorb the expense and not cancel it no matter what.
Exactly.
That's fair.
Approved.
I second that.
So we've got a motion and a second to approve the August 24th and 25th dates. Any other
25th
questions?
and 26th.
I'm sorry, 25th,
We're fine.
26th.
I'll second that.
Oh, we already got a second.
Oh.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Motion carries.
And we have already had a 2019 session that had 2 dates canceled, one of them. So I appreciate the information of why we are concerned. That is very real. I appreciate your commitment. Thank you, Ms. Anderson.
So much.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Good luck.
Good luck.
Congratulations.
Next on your iPads on page 8, you have another session being requested. This is the Beauty Educators Leadership Conference. Ms. Destiny Cox is asking for a session to be held in the Memphis area on November 10th and 11th of 2019. Ms. Cox, thank you. So, Ms. Russell, you will be in charge of the rest of the meeting. Thank you.
Welcome.
I was not prepared for this. You all may have to coach me through this.
No problem.
We had a coach Ron too. Don't worry about it.
And you have on page 8 and 9 the request and then the 2-day agenda. This is for November the 10th and 11th. If you have any questions for Ms. Cox.
Done this before, Ms. Cox?
Yes, ma'am. I do them all across the country.
Across the country.
Yes. And I've done them once before for the University of Memphis.
You have a minimum number of students that you need to attend?
I do not.
Roxana, if we've had classes canceled in the past, would you notify of that if any of those are represented?
Notify the board? Yes. So in the ones that have canceled, one for 2019 didn't ask it for any dates. The other one that just canceled, when she presents in 2020, I will bring that up, that she had to cancel one of the 2 dates. And in that particular case, one of the educators that's asking for continuation is because of that. Like you said,
Correct.
They count on these courses way in advance, so it becomes difficult.
Ms. Cox, you're asking for a CE request and you're opening a new specialty school.
Yes, ma'am, I am.
Are we reviewing both at the time?
Not together, no. The only
Okay.
thing you have before you is the request for the continuing education for November the 10th and 11th and her information of what she intends to cover, and then the school application will follow.
Okay.
That way she can stay right there. Should we get her a chair?
I'm fine, thank you.
I want to say this. I have been to a few classes and seminars and conferences that Ms. Cox have spoken at and led, and I think she's a wonderful educator, and she really gets her point across and connect with the people that she's teaching. So I'm in favor of making the motion to approve the CE request.
There's a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And congratulations. And next we will move on to a new school application. This starts on page 10 of your iPads. Ms. Destiny Cox is here before you requesting a new school, new specialty school located in the Memphis area. The school is 1,100 square feet. This is an aesthetics apprenticeship only school. The business license, curriculum, blank contract, and 5 tentative agreements, along with the floor plan and application and fee, have been received timely. I will give you a minute to review, ask her any questions that you might have.
By apprentice only, this is just a classroom, and then all practical work would be done off-site.
That is correct.
You have one location for the practical work or multiple sites?
I have hired a liaison that has, and she will be working with me as far as placing our students and building relationships. And so I think we need that part. And so we have about 2 locations, and because she is our liaison, her job is to get us a minimum of 5.
Spas or other aesthetics?
Yes, spas. We prefer spas.
And remember that they are supervising professionals that take on the students, so it isn't the spa or the location. It's the individual with 10 years licensure or more. So the floor plan for the board's review is on page 29. I skipped past it a couple of times. But it's basically the classroom setting.
Ms. Cox, I have a question on the floor plan. Right there to the right, it said makeup area. Could you explain that a little bit for me?
That makeup area is actually going to be just a retail area. And I really plan to put an area there for when we enroll students, a place for, like a stopping point to have like a sample books, and this is what you can do with your career type thing.
What is the total square footage of the space?
It's 1,100 square feet, and the classroom is 12 by 12. So we have a lot of extra space outside of the classroom, so they won't be cramped.
Have you thought about putting practical in there?
I have thought about it. I wanted to get my feet wet first, and I didn't want to jump and do too many things.
Understand. Are you trying to start in February?
I am. I'm hoping to start maybe mid-February.
I make a motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
There's a motion to approve and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you,
Congratulations.
guys. I appreciate it.
Congratulations. At this point, with our apprenticeship schools, we need obviously a field inspector to go. We will make sure if she's ready that we go within the next 10 working days, unless the board sees a reason to send a board member, given that it's just square footage for classroom. I don't know that we have a need. Is that okay?
I have one request.
Yes.
On your floor plan, Ms. Cox, could you just kind of email Roxana the correct, because right there where it's a makeup area, they kind of insinuate that you're doing makeup there. So
I
just to
will
make
forward
sure it's
over
clear.
immediately.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Ms. Granger.
Thank you, guys.
Next for your review is a revision. This is Larry's Cosmetology and Barber School, and it's a new school license presented for you. This particular request was presented by Mr. Larry Roberts Jr., who appeared before the board at the December meeting. At that time, the board requested some updates to the contracts and corrections to the word massage being included, and kind of guiding the students possibly incorrectly. This is the aesthetics course that they will be teaching. So I have before you the information that he has updated as far as the revisions on the contract. The floor plan, I believe he's added some items. The equipment itself is not drawn, but I don't know that we need to have them on the floor plan as long as the floor plan is accurate. I'll let you review. Mr. Roberts? I was not able to confirm if he was going to call in or come in person. So if the board still has any concerns and not comfortable approving this, we will delay it till April. If you're comfortable approving the cosmetology and barber piece, that is fine as well. On the application, he did not need to necessarily redo it to get rid of the word massage, but if you'll look on the contracts themselves that start on page 44, it is Larry's Cosmetology and Barber College. So I think that will clarify or clear up some of the confusion with the whole massage piece.
He also added tuition prices.
He did. He added the tuition process. He's got the esthetician hours at $750. They were listed incorrectly. So at least at quick glance, what I looked for seemed to be there, but I want to make sure that the board is comfortable, especially since he's not here to answer any questions.
Person, a school owner in Illinois as well?
Yes, he did state on the record at the December meeting that he owned other schools in other locations. He's got a master barber instructor license, and I think besides schools, maybe other businesses. This is a school that closed in September, Frank, September 2018, so he's taking one of the two campuses in the Memphis area, not both.
School accredited? Do you know?
The previous school was.
Oh, if he's planning to do the instructor program, it seems like he was going to do the instructor program, but the hours were incorrect, or there's something incorrect about that.
You're absolutely correct. And from what I see, it's not on there. So at least at this time, I don't believe he will be offering them. When schools renew, they are able to add a curriculum. If it's a full cosmetology school, he could add just natural hair or just manicure and so forth. So he may add at that time, but at least from what I see here, that's not part of the instructor training isn't going to be part of it.
What I can see, he made the changes that we asked him to make. So I'd like to make a motion to approve the application.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Any other discussion?
I do have one concern. In his other schools, do we know if he offer the instructors program? Okay. I'm just wondering because we're seeing on his website that he's offering the instructors program, but I can't figure out if it's in his other schools or the school that he's having now. So that would be a question to ask.
If we approve, are we approving just cosmetology, barber, and esthetician because that's what's in here without the instructor piece?
That is correct. And to, I guess, Ms. Granger's point, and I would recommend that a board member actually go to this school. It is a school that was already licensed, so most of the equipment should be there. But if the emphasis is on aesthetics as well, then that proper equipment needs to be there. And I think a board member going would be very appropriate.
What date does he need the inspection for?
I think he's ready. Based on the December meeting, he was ready in December, that we just needed some changes. So if the board approves the two cosmetology and barber school license and the aesthetics separately being taught, we will reach out for our field inspector and a board member to go. And we have 10 business days from today if they're not already ready to open. So we have plenty of time to be able to fit that in. Are you volunteering, Ms. Sappenfield?
I could do it like this afternoon
Oh.
or tomorrow. I'm out of the country from the 8th till starting Wednesday till the 8th of February. So there you go.
Well, he may be surprised to see you at his doorstep this afternoon. I would say we might be able to send someone else, simply because we'll be going here at the meeting, and I don't think we'll have a chance to get you the documentation so you can go. But we appreciate that.
Spontaneous.
Yes.
There's not. I mean,
So we have I'll turn it back to you, Ms. Russell. We have a motion and a second.
Ms. Russell, on the website is basically just talking about his Chicago school. So I just wanted to clarify that. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve. All in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. Next on your iPads, you have Sheer Perfection Academy with a change in location. If you give me a minute, I'll make sure that Mr. Mejia and Ms. Tahiri are here.
Like what? Morning, young ladies
Morning.
and gentlemen.
Welcome.
Happy New Year.
Happy
You guys
New
look
Year.
younger than last year.
This is a smart man. I can already tell.
This school, it was currently located in Antioch, and they are moving to Nashville. The new school location will be 3,348 square feet. You have before you the floor plan, application, and fee, which were received. And this particular school, I want to make sure that we all recall, has a separate school license for apprenticeship, and that license is staying in the Antioch area, correct? So what they are looking to move here is both the cosmetology and the barber school licenses. Once, if approved, we've done an inspection to the new building. Thank you.
You're keeping one of the spaces.
Sorry?
You're keeping the one space at the
Yes.
y'all at the. I want
For
to call
now.
it the mall,
for,
but
for a moment.
for a moment.
Yeah. Yes, because we need to move out of the mall ASAP. Yes.
They turn the lights off.
You know it can. You know, Amy, we definitely need to move out of the mall because the mall it's not for us to grow. You know, there's a lot of problems in there. So we want to give the students the most convenience situation. So
For context, when I went to inspect many years ago, the air conditioning had been turned off, and it was the middle of July. It was mighty hot.
yes, you know.
We'll leave it at that.
Yes.
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve. Any questions? All right. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye.
And this is with a board member inspection as well, is that correct?
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
New school, yeah.
Thank you.
Motion carries. Congratulations.
Thank you. Congratulations. Are you ready? Yes. Okay, then we'll get the dates coordinated.
Yes.
Thank you.
We could be there this afternoon, from what we understand around here. Mona will drive out.
Prison route.
Next, we have on your iPads also a change in location. This is Global Beauty and Barber Institute. Mr. Mejia is going to do us the favor of staying here, and also Ms. Sierra Gordon is here as the other owner of the school. This school is currently located in White House, and they are moving to Gottliesville. The school is 3,000 square feet. Floor plan, application, and fee have been received. I'll let you review that floor plan, and it's on page 52.
This is another change of location.
Yes, better location. Our lease already expired, and we want our student to be closer to Nashville. Like, I believe Rivergate is a better location. We're very excited about that, actually.
How far is it from your current location?
How far? We can say about 10 minutes. Yeah.
There are no problems with transferring the students.
And this is a cosmetology only school, change in location, whereas the other one was Barber and cosmetology.
Is this not the same floor plan as the previous one? 52. It's supposed to be 54.
Oh, I did? Yes, I apologize. You are absolutely right. Page 54. Global Beauty, 3,000 square feet. And the good thing with the iPads are you can expand it. You're going to need to blow it up a little bit to see it better.
Make a motion that we approve with an inspection.
I'll second.
Motion and a second to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Congratulations.
Thank you. And we'll have a board member for that one as well. Thank you so much.
Guys, thank you
Congratulations.
so much. Appreciate
Good to see you.
guys.
Good luck, man.
Thank you. We are now on to our applications to test. And give me a minute. Those start on page 108, I believe. We'll be able to skip past Mr. Gillahan's presentation.
Oh, okay.
Already covered that one. And so you have before you applications for examination for Linda Bowling, Abraham Coleman, Teresa Crumley, Randall Forrest, Calvin Kinzer, Kayla Reed, and Emmanuel Taylor. These applicants have felonies within the last 3 years and are currently incarcerated. The request from them is to take the Tennessee examination, and the board should be able to, on these documents, see the record if they are incarcerated, as well as a letter from the student and the institution recommending them. Normally, the board approves an agreed order for a probationary period of 2 years, but you may do it differently if you so choose. I'll let you review the records. Thank you.
We're making a motion to approve these candidates to test with an agreed order. Make a motion that we do that.
I have a question. On page 135, the subject.
Manuel Taylor?
With those charges, would he be able to be allowed to be around children?
So anyone that we have with sex offenses, if they are practicing in our discipline and licensed to practice after they leave, they are reporting as a sexual predator case, and they have to report and comply with many more things than they do with our program. So in the past, we have approved their license based on those rules and stipulations. Because of the offense, they would not be able to be around children. So that's something that they would have to keep in touch with and report separately from us. I believe on an occasion or two, for some of those concerns, we've done a longer consent order than 2 years. The longest we've probably done is 3. And again, the consent order for that probationary period allows us, if something happens, to go back against that license very quickly instead of having to follow all the channels. But it would be up to him, his reporting, his probation or parole officer making sure that they are not around children, because they wouldn't be allowed based on that. Does that help?
That motion be changed to 3 years?
For this individual?
Then I second. If you change that.
Yeah, so the motion.
Roxana.
Yes, Mr. Gillihan.
I would be in favor of 3 years on that one.
Okay. So, Ms. Amy, you made a motion. Would you be in agreement of that?
Yeah, I would change my motion so that the last applicant, Emmanuel Taylor, we would ask him to be on 3 years, agreed citation. The others would be 2.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve all of them at 2 years, with the last one, Emmanuel Taylor, being probationary period of 3 years. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. Next, we're on our applicants with international licenses requesting to test, and the first one you have before you is a cosmetology license for Mr. Guillermo Reyes Diaz, hours from Cuba. Mr. Reyes is here before you. If you give me a minute, I'll ask him to come up. Let's skip one. I do believe he's here and he wanted to answer any questions that the board might have. If he comes back, we'll come right back to him. But for now, we'll move on to the next applicant. And this is an applicant to test for a master barber with hours from Kurdistan region. And this is Mr. Kovan Ismail. Mr. Ismail completed 1,664 hours in 2014. He's provided a translated and notarized certificate showing the hours and that they were done in a total of 8 months.
Making a motion.
How many hours was that again?
On the documentation provided, it's 1,664 hours done in 8 months in 2014. He would be requesting to take the exam.
Okay. Someone who is attending classes 40 hours a week, it would take 10 and a half months at a 40-hour week schedule to meet those numbers.
Board recalls at the last meeting, now that we are going to have only 6 meetings in 2019, the board approved for myself and the administrative manager to review all international applicants. If we were comfortable and everything looked right, looked certified, we could go ahead to put them to test. And that's been the case with most of them. So the ones that I'm presenting before you, something didn't quite line up. So I do want your review of them. Otherwise, we would have put them through.
Well, it take 10 and a half months to complete those hours that Ron referred to. How did he receive hours more than 40 hours a week. Is that okay? Is that legal?
Well, in that international country, they might run more than 40 hours a week,
Exactly.
which would be very common.
Should be 48.
Okay. Roxana, could you tell us why you felt like that we needed to look over this?
Unfortunately, he just came in, so the timing was perfect. And the second piece was the length of time. It was a very quick number of hours for the board to review.
Okay. Which one are we talking about with this?
Roxana, did his hours or did his credentials go through the verification process that we've recently instituted?
No, because what we've done with the verification process is if the documents are not translated, if they don't look certified or notarized by anyone, then we do send them through. But otherwise, if the documents look to be accurate, have certification, have some type of credentials on them, then we don't, for the simple reason that it delays them a couple of extra months and costs them additional money. So far, what the board has instructed is if we have any reason for concern for the school or the hours coming or information to question those hours, then we do put them through. Otherwise, the board has been of the opinion that the exams are how we would protect the public by allowing them to go ahead and test.
At that point, page 161 looks pretty papered up to me. I'd make a motion to approve the ability to test.
I second that.
You're requesting both tests? You're requesting both tests?
Yes, they have to take both.
Okay. We've got a motion and a second to approve to test. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. We will come back to Mr. Guillermo Reyes Diaz. If you give me a minute, I will guide him to, since he came in person, if you have any questions, I'll make sure he can get on the phone.
Good morning.
Thank you. You have before you an applicant to test, wanting permission to test as a cosmetologist. These hours were received in Cuba. His information included every document translated and individually certified, so you don't have them all on your iPads, only the ones in English. And the certification letters I have pulled off so you wouldn't have dozens of items, but you do see the breakdown of all of his courses. His actual transcript shows 720 hours completed in 2014. He's provided information that he actually attended school between 2010 and 2014, and things, as Mr. Gambusa stated, are done differently in different countries. So that's the reason he's before you.
Ironically, I just happen to be very, very familiar with the school that he attended in Cuba. I know the owner of the school pretty well, and I could tell you right now, if that school is in the States, I'm not sure half the people would get licenses. It's one of the toughest beauty schools I've ever seen, and nobody just going to breeze through. So I've been there personally. I taught at that school, and some of the best students I've ever seen. So my guess would be that if he got through that school, and then I know he's done some additional hours as well on sea, which you don't get hired on those cruise ships unless you test out in every arena. You can't just be good at one or two things. You got to be good at everything. I think there's something like 800 applicants to every one job on those cruise ships.
Wow.
So I don't know what exactly the recommendation is from from council, but I can tell you right now that I'd hire this guy in the New York Minute if I could.
And that's fast.
So his transcript is on page 149. I wouldn't have been able to put him through the test because the transcript shows 720 hours instead of 1,500. But however, from the work experience and additional hours that he submitted and conversations, he explained, sort of like Mr. Gambusa said, that their apprenticeship program there goes over and above the hours, and so and years of experience. So we're looking at this not being unique because of that. So he would have had the traditional hours in school as well as the work hours. So I leave it up to the board to decide if you can approve him to test or if you feel he needs more hours.
I would make a motion to approve him the test because the proof's going to be in the pudding there anyway. And I know with some of the past experiences of borderline issues that we've allowed to test, I think this one qualifies every bit as much as some of the ones we've approved in the past.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Those.
Bet be good.
Thank you. Pam, do we need a break or not yet?
If I can have your attention for a moment, we have a summary suspension scheduled at 11 today. However, I realize it's 11 o'clock. The respondent has been in contact with me. He is in court in Memphis, and he does want to participate by phone. However, he is still in court. It is ultimately up to the board to decide whether you all want to go forward without him being available at 11 or not. However, I have had discussions with him, and he does intend to participate, and he knows to contact me as soon as he is available. If you have other business to attend to, you can continue with your board meeting, and I'll notify you as soon as I hear from him.
Sounds fair. Is that your recommendation as well?
That is fine with me. I mean, what I don't want is for you all to finish the board meeting and then be sitting here waiting. There's no obligation on the board to wait. You can have the summary suspension at 11 as planned. That's what he was notified on. But he did contact me Friday to let me know that he has court at 9:30 this morning in Memphis. He couldn't be here in person. He wants to participate by phone, and I confirmed this with his criminal defense attorney. So at this point, since you have other business, I would say continue on, and I'll notify you as soon as I hear from him.
Sounds good.
I have explained to him that a continuance is not an option. So we would go forward today, and I've explained to him as soon as the board meeting is over, if you all have completed all your other business, we would need to go forward with the summary suspension hearing.
Thank you, Pam. We are on page 163. One last applicant requesting a test. This application is from a master barber with hours from Damascus for Mr. Asar Mohammed. Mr. Mohammed completed 2,000 hours in 2016. He has provided translated documents and the notarized certificates showing those hours.
This is from Muhammad Azar.
That is correct.
Roxana, why did you feel that it needed to come before the board?
This one also, fortunately, was pretty current. We just didn't get anything else from this individual except for that particular document. But in reality, if you add all the hours, which is what I did, they do come up to 2,000.
I don't see anything that alerts me, so I'm gonna make a motion to approve for testing.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carries.
Thank you. We are moving on for our reciprocity applications. We have 4 today. We will start with the application for reciprocity of a master barber license from Florida for Lindsay Bruner. The certification shows an initial licensure in July of 2014 with 1,200 hours and no practical exam. Ms. Bruner is a few months short of having the 5 years work experience, but otherwise has provided a list of her work. My recommendation would be that the applicant take the practical exam.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello.
Is this the interpreter?
Yes, this is the interpreter.
Thank you for calling us. We do not have Mr. Faraz on the phone right now with us. Can I call you back as soon as he is ready?
Yes, please. And can I have the access code, please, just to make sure?
Absolutely. It is 35837.
37. Thank you. And okay, my name is Yusra. ID number 4656, and you can call me back. Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. You've been wonderful, Yosar. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
It's always interesting. On this applicant, my recommendation would be that they take the practical exam. Again, they've got the work experience, just not the full 5 years.
Make a motion that we pass this applicant through to take the practical exam.
Second.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next, we have an application for reciprocity of a cosmetology license from Pennsylvania. This application starts on page 177. It is for Ms. Stephanie Fitzgerald. The certification shows an initial license in June of 2001 with 1,250 hours and both exams. Ms. Fitzgerald provided tax records for 2012 through 2014 and a written explanation of her work in the industry between 2001 and 2008. My recommendation would be that she's approved for reciprocity.
Make the motion to approve.
Parsons, I make a motion to approve.
Second.
We've got a motion and a second to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next, we have an application for reciprocity of a cosmetology license from New Jersey for Jacqueline Oldham. The certification shows an initial license of January 2011 with 1,200 hours and both exams. Ms. Oldham has provided tax records for 2012 through 2015 and a written explanation of more experience in the industry, but unable to provide paperwork because she has moved and her items are not at her reach. The recommendation would be to approve the applicant for reciprocity.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Our last reciprocity applicant is a reciprocity for a manicurist license from North Carolina for Thivo. The certification shows initial licensure in July 2014 with 300 international hours. North Carolina required the applicant to take both exams. Ms. Vo will not meet the 5 years work experience for the needed 600 hours that Tennessee has, but she is only a few months short. The recommendation would be that she be approved for reciprocity.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
To make sure that I've got these right, who did the motion on this? I apologize. Kelly. And the second?
I did,
Frank.
but so is someone else. I'm not sure who.
Okay, we've got you.
Parsons.
Kelly and Frank. Thank you. Are we good, Pam, to continue? Okay, thank you. Okay, we are moving on to the miscellaneous applications. First on your list, you have a request of cosmetology student hours for Ms. Keone Price. Office files reflect 1,500 hours were completed between 2001 and 2013 at a school that is no longer open. The information also states that the hours were not to be released. The school had two different campuses in the Memphis area, closing in 2014 in one case and 2015 in the other. The board may consider releasing these student hours since the school is no longer open and has not given any additional instructions to the office on how to pursue those students that possibly owed a financial piece.
Question. The school that she went to, Vet Rock Career College, was that one of the ones that the doors just shut down immediately? The doors closed
I
immediately?
believe so, way back.
Yeah.
Yes. So you can see on, and this is our record of our database on page 209, where you can see they did submit the paperwork that we need in order to enter them in the system, but they clearly marked do not release. More often than not, that is for financial reasons. The individuals didn't pay what was owed. Sometimes it's exams, they didn't pass a certain exam, but often it's the financial aspect. And so when schools close, if they give the board office instructions on who to call, who to email, we consider it their business to still follow up on that debt, if they will, as long as the students aren't being left in the cold and the students aren't being helped. And in this case, she'd have nowhere to go but to come to the board to ask for her hours.
We're just releasing those hours or
That's
allowing
correct.
her to claim this?
I'll make a motion to release the hours.
Yeah, can I ask a question first before the motion? This wouldn't happen to be one of the schools that the gentleman from Illinois is. Okay, I thought maybe coincidentally it
This
might.
goes back to 2014 and 2015 that they've closed.
Okay, please. Okay.
So again, I make the motion to release the hours.
Second that.
We've got a motion and a second to release the hours. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carries.
Thank you. Next, we have a request for extension of continuing education required for Master Barber Instructor Danielle Heaston. Pursuant to Tennessee Code Annotated 62-3-124, an instructor must complete the 16 hours of an approved training program. It is at the board's discretion to approve up to one additional year extension for good cause. Mr. Heaston has emailed explaining that he has been on military status, keeping him from being able to complete the continuing education within his cycle. His license expires April 30th of 2019, and he obtained his first instructor license in 2017, so this would have been his first session.
Make the motion for the extension.
I second it. Nina Coppinger.
Thank you, Ms. Coppinger.
Got a motion and a second for an extension. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carries.
Thank you. Next, we have a request for continuing education requirement for Master Barber Instructor, Mr. Christopher Ingram, pursuant to Tennessee Code Annotated 62-3-124. An instructor must complete 16 hours of approved training program. It is at the board's discretion to approve up to one additional year extension for good cause. Mr. Ingram emailed explaining that he will not be able to complete the continuing education session prior to February 28th of 2019. He obtained his instructor license in 2013 and attended all the other required sessions prior to now.
Motion to grant the extension?
Second.
You know, I just want to make a comment. In situations where they're not informed of where the CE classes can be held, is it some kind of way that they, to let them know they can go check the website? Because we're approving CE classes like almost on a regular in these meetings, and it's a lot of classes that he can attend, especially in the area that he's in. I think he said usually go to Collierville, Tennessee, which is Memphis, and you could have just been more diligent about getting those dates done. So sometimes I think these are just excuses for not doing your diligent duty to get your continuing education hours. Although we've been approving things like this in the past, I just wanted to make that comment.
My entire office would agree with you. Because most of our instructors are phenomenal, but every now and then we have the one that thinks it is our obligation to let them know when to go. So we're very cautious to try to let them understand that they've got a whole 2-year cycle with which to take it, and that the website is updated before the year ends for the whole following year. So
But this is
agree.
his first request for extending,
That
right?
is correct.
So, in most cases we do approve, but hopefully, he'll know to look up the dates for himself.
It should. There's no doubt about that.
Okay.
So, thank you. I appreciate that. Next, we have a request for continuing education extension. This is a cosmetology instructor, Eugene Johnson. Pursuant to Tennessee Code Annotated 62-4-114, an instructor must complete 16 hours of an approved training program. It is at the board's discretion to approve up to one additional year for good cause. She explained that she was not able to take this course because she was pursuing her associate's degree and also had a baby with a complicated pregnancy. She obtained her instructor license in 2017, and this would have been her first session.
Make a motion to approve the extension.
A second.
Got a motion and a second to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. This is our last instructor. You will be happy to hear that. This is a request for extension from a cosmetology instructor, Nina Williams, pursuant to Tennessee Code Annotated 62-4-114. An instructor must complete 16 hours of an approved training program. It's at the board's discretion to approve up to 1 additional year for extension for good cause. She explained that she thought she had taken the session in 2017, which would have counted toward this current renewal cycle. However, she actually took it at the end of 2016, and it was for her prior renewal cycle. She obtained her instructor's license in 2013, but this is the first time that the board would consider an extension.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Another comment.
Yes.
I hope that the instructors that get these extensions understand that it's easy breezy on your first request, but the second request not going to be that easy because you forgot or you thought.
Well, and they can't per the statute. So the cosmetology statute is very clear that we may only do this once. And so to be consistent between the two disciplines, that's what we've done. We don't approve a second. So what they would have to do is retest. Having said that, also until they take the CE, your instructor license is not active. So if you're teaching, you actually can't teach. We had one instructor, maybe even two, at the last round because there are no sessions between October and February or March that they decided to test because, of course, if you're working as an instructor, the extension doesn't do you any good.
Just hope they understands that.
I'm with you.
You're saying it should be in big letters in red. It ain't happening again. Is that what you're saying? That's what I'm hearing.
Basically. So by statute, you actually can't approve them a second time. But we've worked on rules that keep it simpler. But we may have some instructors that aren't happy when we hold them accountable. Next on your iPads, and we are on page 228, this is a request for an approval of an equipment change for a skincare shop. This is coming from Ms. Tillman. She is a licensed esthetician and working at the Wellness Tree. She has provided via an email a letter explaining that she wants to offer facial services using a massage table instead of a facial chair, which is what the equipment lists. You have a picture of the room because the concept of that particular location, they're licensed through the spa board as well as through us. But in the room where she does facials, the clientele that they mostly cater to would struggle sitting in the chair, so more so they want to use the bed instead of an actual facial chair.
Yeah, the school license.
I'm not sure I would agree that there's a struggle between a facial chair and a massage table. Facial chair is contoured for more comfort. I'd be a stickler for the rules on this. Everybody gets a facial chair, you know.
So are you saying no? Because I'm thinking that's kind of let the market speak for itself.
Can we text you the picture?
Good morning, board.
I don't care if you get a facial standing up. If the client likes it, I mean.
Good morning, board. I think there's room for an establishment to perform facials, on this type of table. But as far as you all approving an establishment, I think they have to meet the requirements and the rules and have all that equipment on site in order for you to approve it. So I don't think you all can waive the required chair. It's up to them as practitioners how they wish to administer their services, but you all don't have the authority to approve this waiver per the rules.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, because if we make this one request, then everybody, well, we're not able to anyway, but if we were and we made this adjustment, everybody would be making an adjustment, because what's probably happening here, this massage table is probably way cheaper than the facial chair that kind of contours, because it's just laying flat and that's just a pillow underneath the sheets there. possibly, but we
Yeah,
can't.
but you can get cheaper facial
Yeah.
chairs than there are
Yeah.
massage tables too. That could go either way. I guess what we're saying, we're talking about two different things. Whether she could perform that service on that versus asking
Required
to waive.
equipment.
She's asking to waive the chair itself.
Is asking to not use the chair and instead of the chair, which is the equipment listed under our statute, have a massage table be acceptable instead of a chair.
Well, I mean, if we want to get down to whatever, that little anti-gravity chair to the right, if she threw a sheet over that, it'd look like a facial chair. I mean, it's
Well, that's not our call anyway. From my understanding, we can't make a decision on that anyway.
I think as long as when the shop is inspected, it has all the required equipment. That's all that the board would need to ensure. And as far as how she wishes to render
Yeah.
her services, that's
so she doesn't need
up to
our
her to
approval, maybe.
determine.
She has to have the equipment. What if she has one of each? If she has a chair and a table, she could choose to do her service on either, but she would need to have the facial chair required on site. Correct?
Right. My position is, as far as your rules, that chair has to be on site pursuant to our inspection in order for the board to approve. But however she wishes to render her services, that
Right.
is,
And that's, I
in
agree
her
with both.
discretion.
So do we know in the rules what defines a facial chair?
I think here she has readily stated that it's not a facial chair, it's a massage table, and so here I don't think it would be really pertinent. But I think with you all being in the industry, I think there's probably an understanding of what is a facial chair and what isn't.
And there's some hybrids that are questionable, but with this specific request and out definite rule, the answer sounds like it has to be no with the verbiage.
Well, I can't really tell from her request, if she's seeking to have this one room approved as her skincare shop or if she's seeking to have the entire building approved. And so I think it would depend on the inspection and what part of the shop she's seeking to have designated as her skincare shop. Sometimes practitioners seek to have one room licensed as an actual shop, and it depends on the leasing arrangements and things like that. And sometimes it's the entire building. And as long as the part that is considered her shop, whether she's seeking a skincare license or cosmetology shop license, as long as the equipment is in the part that she's designating as her shop, the board can approve it.
But would you recommend tabling this decision until you get further information?
She is seeking to have one room. You're looking at the room on page 229, and that room will be, if we approve, and if we don't, she may still get a skincare shop license for that room where she is planning on offering facials.
It looks like she's not filled out an application for a skincare shop.
Has not. She is
Okay.
asking us to make this decision, so she will decide if she's going to obtain or not.
But it's not a decision for us to make, right?
That's correct.
Your decision, I believe, is we are denying the use of the bed.
So I make a motion to deny the request based on rules.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second to deny. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Yes. I mean, she's waiting on our decision. Yes. Next, you have consideration of hours completed past the 7-year requirement. This is from Mr. Michael Dickerson. He completed his master barber hours between 2006 and August of 2014. Pursuant to Tennessee Code Annotated 62-3-112, master barber students must complete the hours within 7 years. That law went into effect in 2015. So in other words, after he did went past the timeline. However, Mr. Dickerson on this letter on page 230 explained that he had made very poor decisions with his life and therefore was unable to do anything to pursue his license. And you're welcome to read that. He is just now hoping to get on the right side of the law and pursue his passion in barbering and be allowed to use these hours to take the exams.
Hey, Roxanne, when did he get his license?
He did not, ma'am. He's still asking to test. So we're talking about the hours. The hours go back from,
I'm sorry. When did he get his hours? That's what I meant.
yeah, May 2006 through August 2014. So it did go past the 7 years. However, the law did not require that until 2015. So had he asked for them in 2014, he would have been approved to test. He would have had no problems. Early 2015, we probably even would have considered that he'd fallen between the cracks in the timeline when the law changed. At this point, it's too late for my office to approve it without the board's consideration. But I bring you back to the fact that he attended when that law was not there. The reason he hasn't asked for these and tested are just situations with his decisions. And so at this point, if the board approves the hours, given that that law didn't exist, then we could put him through to test. Otherwise, as the statute's written, he would lose all those hours.
Yeah, I'd say if he can pass the test after all this time, he would deserve his license.
And who do I have on the record? I apologize.
This is mine. I'm Coppinger. Sorry, I can't
No, you're
talk.
kind of hoarse, Miss Coppinger. Thank you. I thought I'd recognize you, but I didn't. Thank you.
And I second that.
Got a motion and a second to approve for testing. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Next, we have an extension for the rule of original license. This is from Ms. Diane Franco GV. She passed her cosmetology practical exam on October of 2017. She did not have a status for the Verification Eligibility Entitlement Act in order for the board to be able to release her license at that time. Pursuant to Rule 0440-01-.10, an applicant must obtain their original license within 6 months after they are notified that they have passed the examination. The board has given me the authority for up to an additional year from that point for extensions that include good cause. Ms. GB was just confirmed, and on your iPads on page 235 you will see the save. This is the verification that for any applicant that is a qualified alien and submits paperwork, we need to put through the database. So this was just now approved on January 7th of 2019. So she is asking the board's consideration so she can obtain her license. If not, she would need to take both exams again.
Make a motion to get her license.
Second.
We've got a motion and a second to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Aye. Aye.
We are on page 237. If we could, and I'm sure the board would appreciate a 5-minute break, we do have our summer suspension, so I'll make sure to get the interpreter on the phone. It is 11:25. We'll come back right at 11:30. Thank you so much. Mr. Gillihan, are you there? We might have lost. For those of you that are on the phone, you're welcome to stay on and just put us on mute. We'll be back in 5 minutes.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I tried to call, maybe get ahead of your game plan, but I did not succeed. I called, I spoke to her.
Yeah. Gave myself some time for Christmas.
Well, that's right. This number back.
I will point to you.
Thank you. We are back on the record. I will turn it over to Ms. Pamela Spicer.
Mr. Habib, can you hear me? Mr. Habib.
Yes, ma'am.
First, I want to explain a few things to you. Today is the informal hearing where the legal department is requesting a summary suspension of your license. Do you have an attorney representing you?
Yes, but he's not available now. He have a court. He say if I schedule it like a Wednesday or Friday, another day.
I would need to receive confirmation that you have representation from your attorney.
Okay. Do you just need that phone number, or how do you need to go about getting that?
They would need to send me an email because I spoke to them on Friday and was not told that he had representation.
Well, we just talked to them today because we thought we did, and she said that we didn't at that point, but they would represent us if we needed them to. So we requested that.
Let me move on to something else procedurally before we get into the hearing. We have an interpreter that is available, Mr. Habib, because I was told that you may need assistance. It seems to me that you're able to understand me, but we have the interpreter available if at any point you're not able to understand me. Would you prefer to utilize the interpreter for the entire proceeding?
Okay, ma'am.
Is that a yes?
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And the interpreter's on the line with us. This will lengthen this process. I need the interpreter to explain to Mr. Habib that the board can vote today to go forward with the informal hearing because Mr. Habib has received notice of same and is participating today.
مرحبا سيد حبيب. مرحبا معك يسرى، راح أساعدك في الترجمة. وطبعا هي بتقول إنه اللوائح وافقت على إتمام الجلسة لديك اليوم، وسوف يقيمون الجلسة اليوم الآن. جلسة سماعية.
Okay.
I also need Mr. Habib to understand that I spoke to his criminal defense attorney on Friday and was given no indication that he would be representing him today.
وطبعا أريد أن أترك حبيب يعلم أنني تكلمت مع محاميه الدفاعي لديه.
Hudaib, my family name Hudaib, Hdaib.
Okay.
Okay.
Therefore, I'm requesting that the board vote to go forward today with the informal hearing.
لذلك أنا طلبت من اللوائح أن تقيم الجلسة اليوم.
Thank you, شكرا.
Thank you.
And we'll need a vote to go forward. Legal is basically requesting that because the respondent received a notice, that the board vote to go forward with today's informal hearing.
وأيضا لقد تم التصويت على أنه يجب إقامة هذه الجلسة اليوم وسوف نقيمها اليوم.
Okay.
So I will need a roll call vote.
Thank you. I will take care of that. First, Ms. Kelly Barger.
Yes.
Ms. Anita Charlton.
Yes.
Mr. Frank Ambusa.
Yes.
Ms. Wyvette Granger.
Yes.
Mr. Ron Gillihan. Ms. Judy McAllister.
Yes.
Ms. Janie Ross.
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Becky Russell.
Yes.
Ms. Mona Sappenfield.
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Amy Tansley.
Yes.
Ms. Nina Coppinger.
Yes.
Ms. Patricia Parsons.
Yes.
Thank you. All in agreement.
تم التصويت والجميع موافقون على إقامة الجلسة.
Okay.
For the interpreter, the board has voted to go forward with today's hearing.
وللترجمة قد تم التصويت وقد قاموا بالموافقة على هذه الجلسة اليوم.
شكرا.
Thank you.
I'll now begin with the hearing.
سوف نبدأ الجلسة السماعية اليوم.
Okay.
Mr. Habib will have an opportunity to speak directly to the board after I'm finished with my presentation.
سيد حبيب سوف نترك لك المجال للتحدث بعد أن أكمل حديثي.
Okay.
For the interpreter, I will put forth some facts and then put breaks in time for you to interpret accordingly.
For the board members, these documents are on your iPads on page 265. Thank you.
Okay.
First, for purposes of background information, Faris Habib's license number, individual license number, is 145755. He was first licensed in July 15th, 2009, and has no disciplinary history.
حسنا لسيد حبيب رقم اللايسن هو 145755 وقد تم أخذه في جولاي 15 2009 ولم يكن له أي نقاط في ملفه.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, correct. Inshallah.
Mr. Habib received notice on January 22nd. We mailed a letter giving notice of the informal hearing regarding the summary suspension of his individual license, which was previously stated. The letter was mailed to 1177 North Parkway, Memphis, Tennessee 38105, which is the address on file with our office.
وقد تم إرسال رسالة لسيد حبيب وهو في يناير 22 لإخباره عن إيقاف عمل اللايسن وهذا اللايسن وهذه الرسالة قد تم إرسالها في العنوان 1171 باركوي وهذا هو العنوان الذي لدينا في الملف.
Okay. I shipped اليوم. Yes, I see the letter today.
Yes, you received the letter.
شفت الورقة اليوم.
Yes, I saw this letter today.
Thank you, Mr. Habib.
Thank you.
We'll now move forward with the facts, whereby legal is asking the board to consider a summary suspension. If I can have my paralegal pass the two documents out that may not be on the iPads. Do you have those on the iPad? Mr. Habib, the two documents that are being passed to the board members are the recitation of the facts that's contained in the notice that you received.
سيد حبيب لدينا الورقة مع المجلس وهما يثبتوا أو لديهم الورق نفسه الذي تلقيته.
Yeah, I have it. موجود الورق معي هلا هاي اللي بعثوا لي إياه.
Yes, I have it right now.
Thank you, Mr. Habib. Again, as I go through the facts, I will take periodic breaks so that you can interpret accordingly. First, as this board is familiar, the sole issue to be considered today is whether the public health, safety, and welfare is imperative that requires emergency action by this board.
والآن هي الجلسة التي نريد أن نعلن فيها في هذا المجلس إذا كانت ما تستحقه في خلال هذه الجلسة.
شكرا. وبتمنى انهم ينصفوني صح المرة هاي لانه انا تعرضت لظلم ريلي والله.
I hope that you will be fair with me next time.
Yes, Mr. Habib, you will have an opportunity to speak to the board after I present the facts.
طيب سيد حبيب لديك الفرصة أن تتكلم مع المجلس بعد أن أخبرهم بالحقائق.
أوكي شكرا لك كثير وبتمنى أنه يظهروا الحق لأنه أنا انظلمت.
Thank you so much. I wish that you will see all the truth because I feel that's unjust.
وتعرضت للاضطهاد في كل مكان بروح فيه هون عشان الاقي صالون ادور على شغل. عرفتي الي اسم ريلي كويس في البلد وكنت اشتغلت مع اشهر مشاهير العالم في العرب وكل مكان وهون كمان بس الحمد لله.
And I also feel like that's not fair because I was looking for a work and I worked before with lots of famous people all over the world.
ونجحت واشتغلت مع جلالة الملكة نور الحسين مرت الملك عبد الله الملك حسين واشتغلت هون أخذت the best of Memphis 3 years وتلاقيت حرب كثيرة من أكبر الكوافيرات هون.
And I was really I was really a successful guy, and I worked with the Queen Noor, but lots of people was against me here.
Mr. Habib, I understand that. If you'll let me get through the facts, then you'll have an opportunity to speak to the board.
Okay, bye.
سيدي إذا أديتني المجال أحكي لهم بالحقائق بعد كده حيكون عندك المجال إنك تتكلم.
شكرا لك كثير.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Habib has been charged with sexual battery, which is a Class E felony.
سيد حبيب لقد تم اتهامه بالتعامل الجنسي.
The facts that support the charge are as follows.
وهذه الحقائق تدعم أو تكون ضده.
On January 19, 2019, Officer Thomas and Logan responded to a forcible fondling call located at 6325 Quail Hollow Road.
في يناير 19 2019 قد تم الاتصال في عنوان معين وهو 26 هذا العنوان 26 اتصال من شخصين.
This location is not a shop. The address provided is an extended stay America located in Memphis, Tennessee.
وهذا العنوان ليس محل ولكنه في منفس في عنوان في أمريكا منفس.
The victim advised that she was getting her hair done when the suspect, this current respondent, put his hand inside her blouse. He then sat in the chair, pulled the victim into his lap, and started making an upward thrusting motion on her. The suspect was still on the scene when the officers arrived and was taken into custody. He was transported via the felony response office, where he was later charged with the stated offense of a Class E felony of sexual battery.
وقد تم بعد أن تم عمل الشعر للضحية قد تم وضع اليد على الصدر وسحب الضحية وعمل بعض الحركات لذلك قد تم القبض عليه وقد تم إمساكه في جناية الجنسية وأخذ بعهدة.
Yes, if you'll let me finish, Mr. Habib, then you can speak to the board.
إذا خليتني أخلص ممكن تتكلم مع المجلس يا سيد حبيب.
Okay.
The department's position is based on TCA 45320D1A that the public health, safety, and welfare requires emergency action, and the department is asking the board to consider a summary suspension of Mr. Habib's license number 145755, and open an administrative complaint and place this matter in litigation monitoring due to the nature of the criminal charges. Mr. Habib, at this time now you can speak after what I just said is translated back to you.
وقد تم وضع هذا في ملف وقد تم وضع هذا في ملف TCA 45310118 وقد سحب اللايسن من السيد حبيب، وهو رقم 1457555. وقد حولت هذه القضية للمجلس ليتم الحكم على هذه الجناية.
اوكي.
سيد حبيب، يمكنك أن تتكلم بعد أن أنهيت الحديث.
هلا بقدر أحكي؟
Can I talk now?
Yes.
Yes.
أنا مظلوم في الموضوع هذا. إذا بقدر أحكي وحدا يسمعني بليز لأنه ضروري جدا.
Okay, that's not fair, and I want to talk, and please listen to me. Please, I want someone to listen to me.
The client, she coming for me around 2 years, 3 times. One time I did in the other shop. عملت شعرها بالصالون القديم، والمرة الثانية اجت عندي على نفس الأوتيل لأنه ما كنتش أعرف وين بدي أروح حتى الصالون. فقالوا لي ناس بالمهنة إنه بتقدر تروح على أوتيل تمبرلي، عرفتي، لتعمل شغلك هناك تخلص وبعدين تفتح الصالون. يعني ضايل لي بس لحظات لأفتحه إن شاء الله. وهاي الزبونة اجتني إنه قالت لي بتسوي شعرها، قلت لها أنا هون هلا بالأوتيل.
Okay, this client, she came to me and I did her hair 3 times.
Around 2 years.
Around 2 years. I did her hair 3 times. The second time, I wasn't at my store, and then they said you can do that at the hotel.
بعدين رجعت استقبلت موعدها. كان عندي موعدها يوم ساتردي على الساعة 5:30 على 5. بعدين أجلته عشان كنت تعبان شوي، قلت لها لل25 وبعدين لل35 لغاية ما عملت لها الإكسبت تبعها.
لحظة. Interpreter speaking. I will ask him to repeat just to make sure. أنت جاتك في يوم السبت وعملت لها طلبت من إنها تأخر الموعد للساعة كان موعدها الساعة 5 وطلبت منها تأخر الموعد الساعة 5 وكم؟
5:15. بعدين قلت لها خليها 5:30.
5 يعني أوكي 5:15. وبعدين خليتها 5:30 وهذا في الهوتيل؟
Yeah.
Okay, and her appointment was on Saturday, and I asked her to delay the appointment till 5:30 at the end. 5 كم تقريبا.
بعدين اجت وشعرها دامج كثير from the other people. قصولها اياه قبلي وشعرها كان تعبان كثير، فاضطريت اني اقصلها اياه على الناشف بطريقه انه حديث شوي، لاني عملها كل الدامج اللي بشعرها. وهي اخذت مني 25 دقيقه لاقصلها شعرها ناشف كثير حلو.
Okay, and she came and her hair was really damaged and it was dry. I had to cut her hair in a modern style, and I took all the dry hair out, and that took me 25 minutes.
عشان بروح اشتغل مع موديلينج سم تايم بالداون تاون فيديو كليب وكذا، فرجعت علشان اعمل لها شعرها على 5:30 وبعدين عملت لها شعرها وكل اشي تمام ما في اي مشكله. عملت لها شعرها بعدين قصت لها اياها، بعدين عملت لها الصبغه وعملت لها السشوار الصبغه والهايلايت مع بعض، عملت لها تكنيك كلر. وبعدين بعد هيك حطيتها بعد 15 دقيقه تحت السشوار.
طب لحظة خليني أترجم لو سمحت. Because I usually do like I did the other girls and models, and then I came to her at 5:30 and I did her hair and I colored her hair and I did a highlight on her hair, and then I put her for 15 minutes under the machine.
وصارت تحكي لي قصة عن بنتها إنه بفلوريدا طلعت تزور ناس وفرجتني صورها، وصارت تقول لي إن عندها بوي فريند ريتايرد. بعرفش، هي اللي عم بتشير معي الحاجات هاي، عرفتي؟
So
صارت تحكي
she
لي قصص أثناء الوقت هذا اللي كنا نعمل فيه الشغل لغاية ما خلصت الصبغة.
Okay, during that time, while I was working and doing her hair coloring, she was telling me some stories about her daughter and her boyfriend, and she was the one who was talking about a different story while I was working.
بعدين رحت بعد 15 دقيقة، يعني أول شيء أخذ 25 دقيقة قص الشعر، بعدين رحت على الصبغة خلصت، بعدين 15 دقيقة ما حطيت الصبغة والهايلايت، حممت الشعر، عرفتي؟ وبعد هيك رحت لأسشور لها إياه، عرفتي؟ صار الموضوع عندها إنه صارت شوي عشان بتشوف الكي تبعها بالشنطة، فقلت لها بدي أسشور لك لأنه عندي موعد، بدي أروح على الوول جرين الساعة 7:30.
And then after I did the hair coloring, and I put her under that machine to dry her hair.
15 minutes.
And I for 15 minutes, and I washed her hair, and I put her for another 15 minutes. She wanted to take her key from the bag from her bag, and I told her I had to go to. I have another work after 7 o'clock.
7:30.
7:30.
يا 7:30 قلت لها عندي موعد على الوول جرين، انا سشورت لها الغره وسشورت لها الجنبين وكله تمام، مبسوطه كانت.
I did the seshwar on her front hair
بعدين
and
قامت
the
تدور.
sides.
يا وبعدين قامت تدور على المفتاح تبعها بالشنطه.
And then
قلت لها
she started to look for her key inside her bag.
يا وبعدين قلت لها انه عشان عندي موعد بدي اروح على الصيدليه اجيب شويه حاجات الوول جرين، فقلت لها ما قدرت اتاخر لاني موعد ضروري لازم اخلصه.
And then I told her that I have an appointment and I have to bring some medicine from Walgreens.
And she moved very slow. كانت تتحرك شوي عرفتي؟
Okay. And she
بعدين قلت لها انه هيك الساعه صارت 7:25 مش رح اقدر اكمل لك شعرك من ورا الا عشان بدي اروح عندي موعد.
Yes, and then I told her the time right now is 7:25. I will not be able to finish your hair. And she was
عشان هي تأخرت. عشان تأخرت وهي بتدور على المفتاح تبعها بالشنطة تبعتها.
And because she was late and she was looking for her key inside her bag.
بعدين حكت لي انه نسيت المصاري بالسيارة وعشان هيك بتدور على المفتاح لتروح تجيب المصاري من السيارة.
And then she told me that she forgot her money inside the car. That's why she's looking for the key to open the car to get him the money or to get me the money.
Mr. Abib.
Yes, ma'am.
If I can stop you for a moment, we have specific information from the police department that led to an arrest warrant being issued for you. Today's hearing, informal hearing, is a matter of public record, but we are only discussing the facts as they were presented by me initially, which led to your arrest and the charge of sexual battery. Do you have anything that you would like to inform this board with regard to the charges of sexual battery and the facts that were presented?
أنا عم ببني حالي وببني اسمي إلي 9 سنين كلفني نمت على الأرض 25 يوم لأبني اسمي.
Okay.
ما فعلتها ولا اجيت ولا سويت هالحركات معها. عندي ملكة جمال أمريكا، ملكة جمال أمريكا، ملكة جمال تنسي.
طيب هي بتقول انه عندها من تسجيلات او معلومات من البوليس، وبتحكي انه جلسة اليوم خاصة للوضع الجنسي الذي تم اخذه ضدك. هل لديك اي معلومات او شيء يخص هذا الملف بالتحديد سيدي؟
لا والله أنا تعبت وأنا ببني باسمي، أنا ما عملت هيك معها وهي كذبت علي. والله العظيم ما عملت هيك، أقسم بالله ما عملت هيك.
I swear, I did not do that, and she is lying, and I didn't do that. I was building my name for 9 years, and I didn't do that.
بعدين عم بيجوني ملكات جمال من كل مكان لأسوي شعرهم هون، والناس عم بتحداني كثير كثير. والله العظيم ما عملت أي شيء يغضب وجه الله.
I used to do hair for lots of beautiful girls from all over the world, but I know that I have lots of enemies, and they don't want my name to go up or to be a famous name.
Does the board have any questions for Mr. Habib before we vote?
هل المجلس له أي أسئلة لسيد حبيب قبل التصويت؟
Voting to just suspend his license until this legal process would complete.
Correct.
سوف يتم إيقاف اللايسنس تبعه بعد أن نتم هذه الجلسة.
طب بدي أسألك سؤال.
ألو.
بقدر أسألك سؤال؟ قولي لها اشتغل مع ملكة جمال ومع ملكة الأردن، واشتغل مع ناس كثير مشهورين في العالم. أنا مستحيل أعمل هيك، هاي ظلم تعرضت له. والله العظيم كيف بدي أشتغل؟ وين بدي ألاقي شغل؟ عندي 14 عمري بيجوني من كل مكان من أمريكا. والله
أنا مش سامعة. عندك شو؟
اتعرضت لظلم. بحكي لك عندي زباين بيجوني من كل ولايات هون اللي قبالنا بأمريكا. والله تعرضت لظلم. شو راح اعمل هلا بشغلي؟ ما لقيت. لا عليك، هاي الرزق الوحيد اللي باكل منها رزق. هلا راح يتوقف شغلي من غير سبب. انا ما عملت هالشيء، والله ما عملته.
Okay, I swear I did not do anything. I used to do the hair for lots of beautiful girls. I swear I didn't do that. And I also worked with the Queen of Noor of Amman of Jordan. So I didn't do that. I swear I did not do that.
Does the board have any questions for Mr. Habib?
يا سيد، هل المجلس لديه أي أسئلة لسيدة حديد؟
تفضل إذا
Mr. Habib, if you can wait to see if the board has any questions before you respond.
And any of our board members on the phone, do you have any questions? None here in the actual meeting room in 1A have questions. Any of our board members participating electronically, do you have any questions?
No.
Hello, all right.
This is Mona. Do I have the floor? No.
Yes.
You do if you have a question. Absolutely, Ms. Sappenfield.
Yes. This has been brought to my attention by former colleagues and friends, associates in the Memphis community. And this is not the only complaint. This is the only one that was brought to the police. And my question to the ladies that complained to me about Mr. Habib for anger problems, for sexual harassment problems, for him touching them problems, is why would you go to an unlicensed hotel to get your hair done? I mean, my God. So the deal is if Mr. Habib knew that hotel room was not licensed, and he shouldn't have been working out of there. And he also, I have been introduced to him and has said hello in passing many times, and he speaks perfect English. I don't really understand all this translation thing. So maybe just with the anxiety of the situation. But I feel that he needs to explain why he was working in a hotel room, that's extended, weekly hotel, and thought he could be aggressive towards these women. I mean, it's just improper behavior.
Mr. Habib, the only facts that are before the board today are related to the charge for sexual battery. We are not having a full hearing today on the underlying facts of why you were performing services in a hotel. We are only here today to determine if the public health, safety, or welfare requires emergency action, and that emergency action being the suspension of your license, which would then be placed in what we refer to as litigation monitoring for you to keep me updated on the status of your criminal charges. That is what the board is voting on today. Is the board prepared to vote?
Yes.
Yes.
So we will need a roll call vote.
Thank you.
And as I stated specifically, the board is voting today to suspend the license under the authority of 45320 D1A, which specifically provides that if you determine as the board that the public health, safety, and welfare requires emergency action, you can suspend the license of Ferreras Habib, and his license number is 145755.
I will go ahead and take roll call. A vote of yes is that you're in agreement with the litigating attorney, Pamela Spicer, and her explanation. If you disagree, I need you to say no, please, so I can mark that down. We will start with Ms. Kelly Barger.
Yes.
Ms. Anita Charlton.
Yes.
Mr. Frank Gambusa.
Yes.
Ms. Yvette Granger.
Yes.
Mr. Ron Gillahan. Mr. Gillahan had to leave us, so he is no longer part of the meeting. Ms. Judy McAllister.
Yes.
Ms. Janie Ross.
Yes.
Ms. Becky Russell.
Yes.
Ms. Mona Sappenfield.
Yes.
Ms. Amy Tanksley.
Yes.
Ms. Nina Kappinger.
Yes.
And Ms. Patricia Parsons.
Yes.
All members that participated electronically and in person have agreed to your recommendation.
May I say one thing? Sorry. Yes. I would just like to say that fortunately it is not up to this board to believe one party over another, and thank goodness we have a police report, and that's all we're required to look at.
That's right.
Mr. Habib, based on the vote of the board, your license is suspended. Effective today, you will be receiving additional paperwork from me. It is very important for either you or your attorney, if you retain one to represent you in this matter, to keep me informed on the status of your criminal charges. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Habib.
Ma'am,
Okay, interpreter speaking. Do you want me to continue interpreting or?
Thank you.
Mr. Habib, the hearing has concluded. The board has voted to suspend your license. You'll be receiving additional information from me, and if we need to talk after the board meeting is complete, I can call you then.
Can you translate to me?
Mr. Habib, I didn't hear you.
سيد حبيب ممكن تعيد الكلام الذي قالته وقد تم إيقاف اللايسنس تبعك وسوف يتم إرسال ورق خاص لهذا وأرجو إبلاغ المحامي بهذا ويمكن أن تواصل كلامك إذا حبيت.
طيب هلا أنا هاي التهمة والله العظيم ما عملتها. والله العظيم ما عملتها حتى إنه يصدقوها. بعدين بالبوليس يوم ما رحت على الشرطة ما أخذوا إفادتي. لأنه أنا كنت خايف من غير ما يكون معي أترني أول مرة بنحجز في حياتي.
I swear that I didn't do that at all. This is my first time to be caught by the police. I swear
Ever.
I did not do that.
My age is 43. والله العظيم ما.
Mr. Habib, the hearing has been concluded. The board heard what you had to say at this time and voted to suspend your license pending the outcome of your criminal charges. Thank you, and I will call you later.
Thank you, sir. And to the interpreter, thank you so much. This concludes the needed items for the interpretation. You were wonderful. I appreciate it. And thank you. We're proceeding with our board meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. You may hang up.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you, board members. We are back to a presentation under the miscellaneous section. This is for Ms. Leah Gardner. I'll give everybody a minute to get to the right page. Gardner starts on page 237. I apologize. Okay. So before you, you have an extension of the original rule request. This is for Ms. Leah Gardner. She passed her aesthetics practical exam in June 2015. She was diagnosed with lupus before starting school, but she had it under control at that time. Her situation changed very quickly while in school, and as she finished her hours, she put her career on hold due to her complicated medical situation. She is asking at this time for consideration of the 2 exams that she's passed so she may join the industry. Her practical exam is on page 242. She passed that exam on June 9th, 2015, so it is way past the 6 months, obviously, or the year that is allowed. I'll leave this at the discretion of the board. She has provided documentation regarding her medical situation.
She passed both of the exams?
She did.
So we are approving her license?
You would be approving her license if you agree to not have her retest and to allow that extension given this situation.
Make a motion to approve her license.
Second.
We've got a motion and a second to approve the license. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Next, we have a situation. This is PSI had a security incident at their Memphis location on January 2nd, 2019. The candidate, Ms. Thai Kim Lien Tren, attempted to bribe the proctor examiner after starting the exam process, and prior to that, she had asked for help with the exam itself. The report and photos were provided to the board. PSI has already flagged this applicant for further until they receive further notice for the board. The report is on your iPad on page 245. She did not pass the exam. She has a 66, and the photos show that she presented a phone with an app in English offering the proctor money for a change score. Similar but not identical to this cheating situations have come up in the past. The board has handled them by denying the applicant the opportunity to continue testing for a set amount of time. They varied between 1 to 2 years.
So she's asking to be allowed to test.
Well, she's really not asking for anything because the exam ended with the proctor filing a report and flagging her. So she is no longer allowed to test. The board office needs a recommendation from the board how you would like to proceed. Right now, PSI has flagged her, so she cannot test any longer. What we've done in the past with cheating situations, and fortunately they're not many, but we have had them, is we block the candidate from testing further until the board has determined what they need to do next. In the prior situations, we blocked an individual for 2 years, and I think the very first time we had it, we blocked them for 1 year. What the board also asked during those times is that they appear before you before we can release them to test, to explain the situation and to get your direct approval to continue testing.
What criteria was used to quantify 1 year or 2 years, or was it just a conversation?
I think it's just a conversation. We had an individual that had material in the coat that they took in, and so that was very obvious what took place, how it took place. I think this is similar. If we decide to go the 2 years, simply because something occurred before the exam started, the proctor explained that no, they can't help. And yet after the exam, they attempted a bribery situation. So obviously putting the proctors in a bad case, and that's just not what we do. Obviously the school that she completed hours in should have informed them of what the requirements are, and educated them to be able to pass the exam. But in any case, it is at your discretion how you want to proceed with when, if they're going to be allowed to test again.
I'd make a motion to use the previous criteria of the 2-year maximum. This way, we're at least aligning with something we've already done, but I think it needs to be maxed out.
Yeah.
Whether the style of it was in the code or on an app is irrelevant, I think. I think it is what it is, and it needs maximum accountability.
And if she wants to retest, should we ask her to appear before the board?
Most definitely.
Is there any fines involved with that?
There is not.
Well, if they're willing to pay somebody off, they should pay us. No, there should be a fine. I mean, you get your hand slapped.
I second that motion.
So the motion is for 2 years, and she must appear before the board before being sent through to test.
With cash.
Not with cash.
Frank is on.
I'm kidding. On the record, I'm kidding. What's the comment? Just joking.
All right. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. And for the record, we will communicate this with PSI. They will block her indefinitely. It'll be the board office that will put her through the test if at the January 2021 board meeting this individual appears in person, and at that time the board is okay putting them back through. Thank you.
What happens if she goes to another state to test?
Well, she would be needing release of her hours from us. In this case, because we have an official written report, we would include that to any state that requests the hours. I don't know that a state then would allow her to test, but that's what we would be able to do. Good. Thank you.
If she used that app to bribe the proctor, she should have used that app to study her test.
Next, we have an applicant for a manicurist license. This is Ms. Hien Nguyen. Ms. Nguyen was licensed via reciprocity from Texas in 2013. That license was revoked in 2016 for failure to obtain licensure as the statute required. Since then, she has attended a school in Tennessee, has passed both exams, and her practical exam was passed in November of 2018. The consent order is before you, as well as her exam. She is requesting her license at this time.
Motion that we grant her license.
Second.
Is that the position of our attorney? I see Sherelle sign this, yeah? Is that your position?
Yes, we don't have any objections to it now that they've gone to school and, obtained the hours properly. We think it's fine for them to go ahead and be licensed.
Thank you.
We have a motion and a second to grant her license. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Aye.
Thank you. Next, we have a very similar situation. This is an approval for a manicurist license for Thua Nguyen. Ms. Nguyen was licensed via reciprocity from Texas in 2013. That license was revoked in 2016 for failure to obtain licensure as the statute requires. Since then, she has completed the apprenticeship program in a school in Tennessee and passed both exams. Her practical exam was also in November 2018.
Motion we get her license.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second to grant her license. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Aye.
Thank you. We are on to the director's report. I just wanted to, are we okay proceeding? Does the board need a break?
Knock this
We've
thing out.
got an hour, a little bit over an hour left.
Go for
Thank
it.
you. All right. On your iPads, the first item that we have on the director's report is the financial analysis, and this is only through November of 2018. We are leveling off on the expenses. However, it leaves us year to date with a deficit of $16,196. The big months for expenses were, of course, September that we talked about at the last meeting, and that mostly had to do with distribution of computer items and programming, and that every board felt. So I think we will still be okay. That is our financial piece. The next page on your iPads, which is 262, shows the consent orders received. These are those cases that you vote on, the complaints with civil penalties, and November was a little bit more items than we've seen in the past, but those add to our revenue. I've added the next two items that unfortunately our members participating telephonically can't see, so I apologize. Just as new informational items on our complaints, our new system is able to give us some, they're called Tableau reports, and so I'm going to be adding them just for your view. As Ms. Spicer mentioned, now that we're going to meet less often, we're going to see an increase in number of cases because we're meeting 6 times instead of 9. But the numbers and the graph show some pretty consistent paths, if you will. You can tell on page 263. That's based on the number of complaints open, and that kind of goes up and down. The second graph that I added may be something that I'll include so you can see. Those are based on cosmetology being in pink, barber being in kind of a brownish color, and the number of complaints that we're getting, of course, almost all of them from the field inspectors based on their inspections. But just for us to see kind of how many we're getting in and if there's any peaks. I don't think I have anything else on our director's report. So before I turn it over to Sherelle for her piece, are there any questions on any of these?
Since Ms. Spicer's here, I'll go ahead and move to her section so that she can finish the legal report, and then I'll finish out the meeting with the rules and the policy related to schools that we discussed several months ago. Thanks.
Good afternoon. This morning, the committee met, and I have a few updates. The report was approved by the committee with the exception of number 1. The recommendation was closure, and it remains closure with a request for inspection. On number 12, committee requested additional information. I'll let you all get to that on your iPads. I did look into this matter. It was initially a consumer complaint, but based on the consumer complaint, the inspector did go out, and obviously, here's the timeline. An inspection was requested, meaning that the shop owner paid the fee on September 10th, 2018, and the date of the complaint is September 14th, 2018. The shop was open for customers. The response provided by the respondent, who is the owner, stated that she thought she was under a 10-day grace period based under the statute at 62-4-118. I'm not agreeing that there's a grace period, but I understand there could be some confusion based on her response that she thought she had a 10-day grace period. But the question during the committee was this a consumer complaint? Was there an inspection? And then the time frame that was involved.
The shop has since opened correctly?
Correct. The shop is now open. I stand by my recommendation of letter of warning, but we can discuss if you all need to.
It's fine by me. Thank you.
Next, number 46. I went back and looked at my notes. I have actually spoken to the complainant. I refer to the complainant as a competitor, basically because this is a booth rental situation, and the complainant is renting space. The respondent is actually the shop owner.
Just went up.
and the shop owner was providing services that she was not authorized to provide in the license. I'm on number 46. So there was a question during the committee meeting for more information as far as who was the competitor, and how did this evolve. Those are the facts as I have them. I stand by my recommendation of authorized formal hearing and authorized settlement by consent order with a $500 civil penalty, which is consistent with providing services not authorized by the license, and the consumer slash competitor understands that at the appropriate time, if this matter is not resolved, that she would have to testify at a hearing.
I have a question there. We're authorizing a settlement to consent, but without any quantification, just her saying that that's what happened?
She is saying she personally witnessed the respondent shop owner providing services not authorized by the license.
Right, so we're just going on that story only.
If that person files a complaint with our office and that person is willing to testify, then it would be up to the administrative law judge at that point, if the recommendation is approved by you all, to determine if this is a he said, she said, or if the consumer who filed the complaint gives an adequate description of the services that were being provided. Ultimately, the trier of fact makes that decision. Now, you all can obviously disagree with my recommendation and do something different. But based on the information as it was provided to me, this is my recommendation.
You have more detailed information than what's here?
No, just what I've just updated you on, meaning that the individual who filed the complaint is willing to testify at a hearing, if needed, that she saw the respondent providing services. One option you have is to disagree with my recommendation, and you can close with a letter of warning. You can send an inspector out. But as we all know, when you send the inspector out, I don't know whether that person would be providing the services that day or not.
I don't disagree with the recommendation as much as I would question the sequence of it. Like, we fine you, and then they might have to testify. Could she? And this might just be the way the law isn't what I'm asking, but could we not request the fact in writing that she would testify? Because it's easy to say, yeah, I will. We fine them, and then it goes backwards.
Well, will the salon owner have a opportunity, or the respondent, to say, no, that's not true, I'm not signing a consent order, let's go to trial?
The respondent received a copy of the complaint and did not respond.
Okay. Yeah.
So now that, sometimes that happens. I usually will indicate if the respondent responds. They don't always. That's definitely not an admission of guilt. I'm just letting the board know, because there have been questions asked, that the respondent did not provide a response. However, the process is that I will send the consent order out. That usually gets the respondent's attention, because they have no idea until they receive this what a civil penalty could be, or if they're going to receive a civil penalty. So usually once they receive the consent order, they're more interested in what is happening, and they will contact me to discuss. At that point, just like in the past, we don't have any on today's report, but at times I do come back to the board and have to represent if there are facts later brought to light that I did not know at the time. Obviously, we do not intend to do that on complaints, but at times that is a necessity that occurs. As far as I can't require anyone to testify, but when we get complaints in, obviously I make a determination of whether or not I find that the person is credible, and if they tell me on the front end that they're willing to testify, obviously at this time I would just have to take their word. I obviously have the ability to issue a subpoena to someone at the appropriate time if we get to a hearing, if the respondent doesn't agree to pay the civil penalty, and I can subpoena the individual.
What about her providing some type of proof? I mean, everybody videotapes on their phone these days, so I mean, I'm just concerned that somebody's being blamed for something maybe out of spite. Just a possibility. That's my concern.
I
And
guess
we
it's
don't
like,
have any additional proof. What I have told you is what I have as of today.
I guess for me, it's almost like guilty till proven innocent, as opposed to innocent till proven guilty.
I guess to know the respondent has the choice to say, no, I'm not consenting to this. We need to look into this further.
And I think that's probably the best approach at this point with Ms. Spice's recommendation.
And as far as looking into it further, the only thing would be setting it for a hearing, and at that point, getting back in touch with the consumer, who's the complainant, and notifying them of the hearing date, and then we see what happens from
The
there.
consumer was the recipient of the service?
When I say
the consumer was the renter?
basically, when I say consumer, I called it a competitor complaint because it's an individual renting space in this facility.
But that's not who received the service.
No,
Okay.
we have no consumer receiving services. This person is renting space inside the salon and saw this individual respondent, who happens to be the owner, providing services that the individual was not authorized to perform.
Like you said, hopefully a consent order will get the respondent's attention and realize that something's happening that she might need to respond to. Say, that's not true, or prove it.
My
Or
concern
liar,
whenever I
pants on
asked
fire.
the question about this was that we're just going on what the consumer or competitor said, and the respondent didn't know, and so we're just going to issue a fine based on something someone said, and the respondent didn't know. But she's been notified that there was a complaint made.
Correct.
There's no response. I feel like if she
That could be counsel's. Sometimes counsel will tell you not to respond to this. I mean,
And maybe she thought,
That could be their
okay,
approach,
somebody
too.
complained. That happens every day, but maybe she didn't realize that it could go further.
I'm going to make a motion that we accept our counsel's recommendation.
I'll second that, Tricia Parsons.
Those are the only changes that I had on the report. If you all have questions about any other complaints, or we can have a motion to accept the report.
I had a few, and I do apologize for being late this morning to where I could have voiced them then, and I'd like to now. 43. It says this is a consumer complaint alleging that the recipient or respondent provided unprofessional services. What's the definition of unprofessional services in this case? What do we know?
I would have to look into specifically what it was because I don't remember this specific complaint.
Yeah, the unprofessional services probably is stated in that second sentence where it say the client, a response stating that the client.
If you want the specifics of what that is, we can hold that one. We can still resolve it today.
We don't need to hold it. Sometimes I'll make these notes just so I could learn more about it for next time and just be able to be more efficient as a board member. So, it's not that important. 39 was another. It says the respondent is attempting to teach cosmetology techniques without a license. Is this It's just somebody posing as a beauty school instructor?
No, not a school, not in a school. This is specifically related to. I'll give maybe more of an example. Someone, say, in a salon trying to teach people how to do things, for example. It's not like they're holding themselves out as a school instructor necessarily. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess I was trying to quantify here how that affects us, because we do a lot of internal instructing, and I'd just like to know maybe if I'm doing something wrong or not, to be honest with you, on record. I have staff teaching, junior staff teaching interns or senior staff teaching. Is there any ruling there of what somebody can, quote, show somebody or / teach them in a salon environment?
And I think what I was trying to get to, which I may have included facts that were not necessary for the determination because the individual's unlicensed. So whether or not they were actually teaching or not, I was providing that as the information, but whether they were trying to teach or not, they don't have a license.
Gotcha. Okay, that's why I asked
I was
about
just
the
trying
unlicensed
to
activity.
include the facts as they were presented, but the individual doesn't have the underlying license.
Yeah, because if an inspector would come into one of my locations, I'd be fired, because that's kind of how we roll up there.
Right, but you have a license.
No,
That's what
I
was
got
getting
it,
at. Okay.
I'm glad I got clarity on that.
So was this person working in a salon, like providing services in a salon?
Or was it another client?
What do you mean another client?
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't say that. I just said, was this respondent working in a salon providing services?
Based on the information that was provided, the respondent is trying to basically, I hate to say I can't speak for the respondent, but the way the allegations were presented, it looked like maybe that individual was trying to teach, but the problem is you still have to have a license.
Well, but who was she trying to teach?
That I probably don't have that information. There was no inspection. This is based on a consumer complaint.
So it was somebody in the salon not providing services.
It didn't say about a salon.
Well, she just clarified it that way.
Correct. The complaint is against the individual who is unlicensed. Sometimes we don't have specific information about where this has occurred.
Was this just a citizen without any type of cosmetology license?
So could this be say I'm a client and she's a client. I'm like, hey, you put your hair on the roller like this. I could get, as a client unlicensed, I could get penalized for that. I'm not really understanding.
I think it was an unlicensed hairdresser showing somebody what to do, and they just weren't working with a client at that moment. Is what it sounds like.
It was just a consumer
from
complaint.
today on. If we keep asking, she's going to from now on just say yes and no.
It's just
we're not going to get any info.
It's a consumer complaint, right? So just
Correct.
A consumer made a complaint against somebody that they were trying to show somebody something. Is that what I'm understanding?
That's what I would say without going back and specifically looking at the complaint again. Of course, when I have almost 80 complaints, I can't remember each one.
It wouldn't be such a big deal if it didn't say $1,000.
Right. If you all want me to, because you have other business to attend to, I'm happy to go look and make sure before I say on the record what was specifically happening. Based on the information that I provided, the respondent was attempting to provide more of a teaching technique
to a licensed
still
person?
Without a license. No, to a consumer. In other words, a consumer complained alleging unlicensed activity was occurring, and this respondent was providing the service. Regardless of whether it was teaching or not, the individual respondent did not have a license to provide this service.
Like me teaching you to how to cut hair.
Well, and they didn't say whether it was in a salon or a school or a parking lot. They just said that it happened.
But without a license, they wouldn't be able to do it anywhere.
Then
Not
I'm
provide
right.
service. Provide
Well, but they
service.
weren't
Anywhere in a
providing a
licensed
service.
environment. Yeah, I wasn't trying to complicate this at all. I was just trying to.
Like the makeup schools that we had. Remember when we had the makeup schools and they were charging people to like learn how to do makeup, but they weren't actually licensed?
Well, I mean, and if they were charging, that totally changes things. But this just says they were trying to basically show somebody how to do something, or
Yeah, I was basically wanting to just understand: can somebody show somebody licensed?
I mean, if you're in a school or salon, that changes everything. Or if you're asking for money for what you're doing, that changes everything.
Spicer, can you get
That's
us
all
more
I got.
information about?
I can get the information on 39, and it may be that the information that I provide to you is all of the information that we have. And if the person is unlicensed, I have to go with at times what is given to me, and then there are times where I can't get in touch with the respondent. Most, if I wouldn't say all, but most of the complaints are sent out for a response. There's no requirement that they respond, just like you said. For whatever reason, they may choose not to, but the majority of the complaints are sent out for a response.
I would like
But I will
to
look
hear
into
some
that.
more. I would like to, if there are any more details, learn them, because I'm just thinking, if you've got a teenager showing a friend how to braid their hair, is someone going to complain that they're teaching cosmetology without a license?
I understand. I'm going to look into 39 while you all do other business. But what we can do is go ahead and finish the report if anybody has any other questions on any others. Frank, do you want me to look into that other one? I don't remember which number it was now, or you feel
43. No, I don't know. I got enough out of that to understand. I just wanted to understand it better, and I feel very comfortable with your response on that. And I'm even comfortable with this here. I just to vote on it.
Well, I'm comfortable with it. I'm not comfortable with $1,000 civil penalty for it.
And that's just our consistent for unlicensed activity. So
Yeah.
I think Pam will have to come back and determine, was this person charging and providing services and
Yes.
unlicensed? If the
That
answer is
totally
yes,
is
then we're consistent. But it could be that they were also providing services and teaching how to do it. Either way, it's the license that you would have needed for the service. So we got you.
They were they weren't verbally teaching. They were touching and showing. So it's unlicensed activity either way.
But if it wasn't in a salon and it wasn't in a school, and
There's a
someone just
consumer
said,
involved.
you're teaching and you don't have a license,
I think that probably was already vetted to get that far.
but she said she's going to look into it.
All right. So
Other
you want to
than number
exclude that
39.
from a vote?
Well, what we'll do is, I would like to keep it on the report. What we're going to do is you all can go forward with other business. If there are other questions about other complaints, we can take those now, and we can just hold the vote on the entire report until I get the answers on number 39.
Hello, this is Mona, and just FYI, there are people out there that sell products that are unlicensed, and in my facility, because we're on a retail center, we have people come in. They basically have popped up shop, and they're showing people how to, do things to their eyebrows and apply lip products. And finally, someone from the front desk will come get me, and I'm, like, what are you doing? I mean, these people just come in. They basically pop up shop, and it is annoying to clients that, like I have to, everybody has to keep them off the front door. We've had to call security on 2 guys that keep popping in to sell some brushes to us. And I mean, they will just sit down clients and start showing them how to. And we're like, what, who are you? Go away.
What part of town you in, Mona?
We do have those. Well, they haven't met, but, they come get me, Mona, and they're on the sidewalk pretty quick. But, sometimes that goes on for like 30 minutes before I can get up there. And so, we do face that as owners. but I think if some client in my shop wanted to complain, they certainly would have a right to complain. Because they certainly aren't licensed people.
Does anyone have any other questions about any of the other complaints? Okay, if we'll just hold the motion, I will go check on number 39 and get back to you. It won't take me long. So
Thank
You gotta get
you.
back before the meeting's over.
Thank you
I'm
so
going to get back before the meeting's over.
Mona's going to inspect the salon here in a minute, so we.
Can you grab some lunch on the way back?
We're going to finish. Promise. We're on page 269 on your iPads, and I know Sherelle handed out some paper as well, so it's all hers.
Okay, board, if you look at page 269, here's a copy of a sample procedure that we discussed a few months ago. I don't know if you all recall, but late last year there was a situation where a school's license was revoked and the school continued to operate. And one of the questions you all had asked legal is whether or not we could come up with a new procedure in order to hopefully do everything that we could, that you all could as a board, to ensure that schools that are suspended or revoked actually do close their business and don't continue to teach. And so what I've done is drafted just kind of an outline of a procedure, but I'd like to have that discussion with you all and have you all review this. Ultimately, based on the department's policy, what would have to happen if the board wanted to come up with something like this is that the board would have to adopt the policy formally and in writing, and that policy would need to be approved by our administration. So today is really just one of the earliest steps, which is coming up with the procedure that you all would like in order for legal to then draft a policy. But once it is a formal policy, there are a lot of other things that come into play. We have to report all policies to the legislature, and we have to be consistent in applying policies and things like that. And so it is a big deal to create a policy. So I put this before you because you all requested it, but I really want to know kind of what the board's thoughts are as far as moving forward with a formal policy on this. And then if the board does want to move forward with it, we can begin discussing this as a kind of outline and get into the specifics of what you all would like to see moving forward.
Very thorough.
Are we approving these steps of this procedure? What are we doing exactly? I'm sorry.
Well, two things. I wanted your thoughts on whether or not the board wants to move forward with a formal policy. As I mentioned, that is a formal thing that would be in place that would have to be followed, that would have to be reported and applied consistently. And then if the board does want to proceed with moving forward with the policy, I've drafted this sample procedure just kind of as a baseline for us to discuss the specifics of what you want that policy to look like so that I could work on drafting it.
I would like to see it. I'm sorry. I'm getting a little tired. I would like to see it happen. I would like to see a procedure set in place, and from the looks of it, it's very thorough. I just have one question though. After the 2 visits of the inspector to visit the school to see if the school is not open or if it's still open or not, I mean, what happens then? So the unlicensed activity will fall under the reign of the school being closed, right? So if the school has been suspended or license revoked and they're still working in it, that falls on the unlicensed activity, right?
Yes, that's unlicensed activity. And my understanding of the problem that you all have faced historically, and then what I personally saw in the last case, is that schools have been suspended or revoked, but they've continued, some of them have continued to operate. And so the purpose of the inspection is to ensure that they are in fact closed and to be able to report that unlicensed activity more immediately than it's been reported in past cases.
I like that. But if they're still operating within 30 days, they need to be shut down permanently. Or something of that nature.
Could we add to this procedure something about notifying the students? Because I think that's one of the things that we saw in one of the schools that was shut down. I don't even think the students knew that the school had shut down. So now we're left to try to figure out, are we going to count these hours or are we not? And they may have legitimately thought that they were obtaining them and maybe even given the school money. But how are the students to know?
So I can answer on some of our past situations. The schools submit monthly hours report. On them, we get a name for a student, and we get the last four of the social. So we don't know their emails. We don't know their full information. We have no way to reach out to the students. So we do have to some extent, depend on the school that's being suspended or was just revoked to reach out to the students. Unless we have a way to send a notice and find out who those 50 students or 10 students are, we just have no way because we don't have enough information on them. But the schools have always gotten from us that request that they must contact the students to follow up. So
can we require that they turn in withdrawal forms, or
we do?
So will we have the students' information through that form?
Yes, but these are the cases where the school isn't being compliant, right? So yes, they do. And those schools that are closing under good terms, that's the first thing that they do is they reach us before they decide to close. They reach us and say, here's the withdrawals for our 20 in the pipeline. Here's my number and email, and here's who you send to us if you're missing anyone. So they have real procedures in place. The hard piece is when it's a school that isn't operating well, they're likely not going to give us those withdrawal documents with enough information. So
would we be allowed to do a posting on the exterior of their door, like a public notice for all to see, since we don't have individual student contact?
I think that without having anything like that in the rules and then not being aware of what the situation is as far as the school facility, I think that one would not be appropriate to put in the policy. For example, if they're leasing the property, for example, and we post something, there's no guarantee that, let's say, the landlord would leave that there or would be obligated to leave the posting there. I think one thing I could review is the possibility of some type of electronic posting, maybe on our website or something along those lines, to see if that's an option. But that's something that I'd have to review internally to see if that's something that would be suitable in these cases.
I think anything we can do in our jurisdiction for the student, because like earlier, the student didn't want to, in the case this morning, the school didn't want to give up the information, and the student pays the price, right? Where we had a, and it just seems like that's who always sort of gets burnt when you got shady school owners.
Well, and like we talked about earlier, now just about every school has some sort of social media platform. I mean, there's ways to communicate.
So just
I don't know that it can be done
you want
from
to
a
hack
formal.
their page and we'll just
No,
post it
anybody can post. You can post anything. They're public.
on their page.
Yeah, public. I mean, if it's a
Anything
school.
you put on this social media is public.
Yeah.
Period.
Always, because you can block people from posting.
Well, I mean, and that's probably not something formal that can be done. But I'm just saying, if we're worried about students, there are ways to get them notified.
We just got to do whatever we can to
Show up with some chroming.
I'm sorry.
I think this is an awesome start, and I mean, I think it's pretty solid to begin with. When you say to go to work on it, I think you've already went to work on it. I mean, maybe you might want to tweak something here or there, like we're talking about, but sometimes we wait to be 100% in place, and I'd rather know that we go from like nothing to something really good right now, and then we could always tweak it and play with it to improve it. But I love the idea that it's in a procedure, so this way it can be managed.
Worst case scenario, at least it won't be no more than 30 days that they have, been open and acquiring hours compared to 6 months to a year or something, and then they have to go back in. Oh, this is something.
Hey, Sherelle, this is Nana Coppinger.
Hi, Nana.
Hey, I can't see it, of course, but is it that you is the plan to send an inspector out initially after the closure? Is that what it is?
Well, really, it's three components. One, having an inspector hand delivering a copy of the suspension or revocation, then having an inspector go back 5 days later to inspect and see if the school is still operating, and then finally having an inspector go back 30 days later to see if the school is still suspended. I mean, to see if the school that's been suspended or revoked is still operating. So an inspection at 5 days and an inspection at 30 days.
Well, I think it's important to note, too, that it's going to require someone, an individual, to acknowledge receipt by signature instead of just saying, oh, we never opened that mail or whatever.
A signature should be obtained.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. I think that's as important as just having an inspector show up is to have someone acknowledge receipt of the notification.
Is there anything we'd like to change on this as it sits, or just?
I mean, I think all those measures sound good, but if the inspector does all that and all those steps are taken and they still won't comply, I mean, what leg do we have to stand on then?
I mean, I think the issue in the past has been whether or not people have received notice, and on our end, we know that notice has been provided, but that factual dispute has been created by former licensees, and so I think what this does is, if these steps are followed, and if we have an inspector saying that, they went twice and the school appeared to be vacant, and let's say later on the school opened back up, the board would have more facts to go on, and it would help the board better make decisions about what to do in a particular case. Because right now, as it stands, some school owners who are revoked or suspended create a factual dispute about whether or not they ever received the notice and that type of thing. And so this allows the board to obtain the facts that it needs in order to respond to anything that might arise in the future.
Yeah, I think it's a vast improvement. It might not be bulletproof, but at the same time, it's a big improvement, and I think it bodes to us moving in the right direction.
I say one thing in regards to them sending them the email or first class. First class, there's no verification that they received it, right? That's just snail mail.
That's correct. And usually legal, we do send things first class and certified. Most times because certified usually requires a signature. And if that's not done, then it gets returned to us. Whereas first class is guaranteed delivery, unless, something goes wrong with the postal system. But legal, the standard procedure is to send it both ways usually.
Okay, and then there is a type of email that I've gotten sometimes from places that say we have an email, but you have to, like some type of encryption or something that you have to go. I'm just trying to make sure that they receive it to safeguard us from sending and sending and sending. And
Well, it's a
prolonging.
DocuSign.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yep, that's it.
DocuSigns.
And we
It's
probably
an
would
option.
just send a standard email with an attachment. That would be what we had in mind. So
If we're sending them every which way and they're going to avoid it, they're going to avoid all of it, right? But then we're sitting in a position to say, look, we sent it 3 ways. I wouldn't want to be on the other side of that position. It's definitely somebody that's running.
So if the board's okay with this, the only part that I will look into is whether or not we can add something to our website as a part of this policy to notify the public that schools are closed. I'll look into that further and work on a draft to formalize this into a policy. And once I take all the internal steps that I need to take, this can be represented to you all as an actual policy.
Make a motion to move forward, or we just wait for the representation?
I don't think we need a formal
I would think
motion.
so.
We're just kind of having discussions as we work on this, and so I don't think we need a motion on this. So I really just wanted your feedback, any changes that you might have, and kind of your thoughts on moving forward with this as a formal thing at all. So it sounds like we're moving forward. You're comfortable with this procedure, and you want a better way to notify the public of what's going on. So I'll look into that electronic online posting piece as well.
Awesome. Thank you. Good work.
Okay, next on the agenda, we had the new rules, Barber apprenticeship, and this came to my attention as something that needed to be addressed. If you look at a copy of what was handed out to you, right now I'm looking at the document that says proposed rules filing form. If you turn to page 2, this change would remove the requirement that a master barber also be a barber instructor in order to be a supervising licensed professional. And on the cosmetology side, there's no requirement that the cosmetologist be an instructor in order to be a supervising licensed professional. And so there's an inconsistency here. And so what this rule change would do is make it so that both sides are the same, and a master barber, any licensed master barber with the 10 years of experience could supervise an apprentice. And it's already that way on the cosmetology side. And so that's the change I'm having you all look at. If you look at section L, line 4, you see the word both crossed out, and then you see and barber instructor crossed out. That would be the rule change. We would delete those words so that that requirement would no longer be there. And this would be by proposed rule. And so that means that this is the only time that the board would look at this. There would be no formal rulemaking hearing unless a petition was filed within 90 days of this being filed with the Secretary of State's office. Otherwise, because it's such a small change, if you all approve this today, and I took the necessary steps with the Office of the Attorney General and the Governor's Office, and they approved it, this would essentially become the new rule as long as there was no opposition. So today would be your sole opportunity to look at this and review it. Do y'all have any questions for me on this?
I didn't realize that it was in there about the instructor for Barber, but I definitely think it needs to be changed, like you said. And this is Nina Coppinger, and I'd like to make a motion to change it as Sherelle suggested.
Thank you,
Patricia Parsons, I'd second it.
Motion and a second to change this by deleting the words both and barber instructor. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion passes. So now, for the sake of our rulemaking procedures, I do have to have another motion to formally adopt the language, even though you all did that by roll call vote, the Reg Flex and Economic Impact Statement, the Impact on Local Government Statement, and additional information by the Joint Government Operations Committee. I've also put before you the regulatory flexibility analysis memo and the governor's questions. And so what I would need is for you all to, by roll call vote, formally adopt those statements. And before you do that, I do need to say for the record that there are copies of these rules in the back for anyone in the public who all of our guests have left, but anyone in the public who is interested did have access to those copies before you all formally adopt these documents. And so first I'll start with just the information on 7038, on the form 7038. That's the language, the regulatory flexibility analysis, the impact on local government statement, and the additional information for the Joint Ops Committee. If I get a motion with a roll call vote to adopt that, that would be the first step.
Patricia Parsons, I make a motion to adopt the roll call vote.
I'm sorry, Patricia, that would be to adopt, we would need the motion to adopt the items on the form 7038. And so that would be the economic impact statement, local government statement, joint ops information, and then the language itself.
Okay, make a motion to adopt form 7398 with the forms available. I can't see them, so I can't read them. So.
Is there a second?
Second.
We've got a motion and a second to adopt these forms. All in favor? It's by roll call.
Aye.
We'll actually need Roxana to call the roll.
Thank you. Ms. Kelly Barger?
Yes.
Ms. Anita Charlton?
Yes.
Mr. Frank Ambusa?
Yes.
Ms. Wyvette Granger?
Yes.
Ms. Judy McAllister?
Yes.
Ms. Janie Ross?
Yes.
Ms. Becky Russell?
Yes.
Ms. Mona Sappenfield?
Yes.
Ms. Amy Tanksley?
Yes.
Ms. Nina Coppinger?
Yes.
And Ms. Patricia Richmond?
Yes.
Thank you. All those participating have agreed to proceed as Sherelle has advised.
The next thing we'll need to adopt is the regulatory flexibility analysis memo, and that's in front of you. It's a 2-page document. If I can get a motion and a roll call vote on that.
I'll make a motion to adopt the regulatory flexibility. Is that what it was?
I second that.
Thank you. And I will proceed with the roll call. Ms. Kelly Barger?
Yes.
Ms. Anita Charlton?
Yes.
Mr. Frank Ambusa?
Yes.
Ms. Wyvette Granger?
Yes.
Ms. Judy McAllister?
Yes.
Ms. Janie Ross?
Yes.
Ms. Becky Russell?
Yes.
Ms. Mona Sappenfield?
Yes.
Ms. Amy Tanksley?
Yes.
Ms. Nina Coppinger?
Yes.
Ms. Patricia Parsons?
Yes, ma'am.
All those participating agreed to proceed. Thank you.
And finally, I need a motion to adopt the answers to the governor's questions, and that's a 1-page document that's in front of you. And I would also need a roll call vote for that.
Make the motion to adopt the governor's questions.
Second. Chris Parsons.
Thank you. And the last item by roll call, Ms. Kelly Barger?
Yes.
Ms. Anita Charlton?
Yes.
Mr. Frank Ambusa?
Yes.
Ms. Wybeck Granger?
Yes.
Ms. Judy McAllister?
Yes.
Ms. Janie Ross?
Yes.
Ms. Becky Russell?
Yes.
Ms. Mona Sappenfield?
Yes.
Ms. Amy Tanksley?
Yes.
Ms. Nina Coppinger?
Yes.
And Ms. Patricia Parsons?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, Board. That concludes our review of these rules. I will update you all at the next board meeting on the status. Thanks.
Thank you, Sherelle.
If we can return back to the legal report. On number 39, the complaint that was received indicates that the individual is teaching high school girls and others how to apply lashes. The consumer provided the Facebook post to substantiate this information. That was the piece of information that was left out of the summary, the Facebook post. The individual is hosting seminars, for lack of a better way to describe it, to teach anyone who is interested in coming how to provide certain services. Based on that information, the recommendation is that this individual is providing services unlicensed, and the standard penalty for the unlicensed activity is $1,000. This is consistent with what we have done in the past related to Facebook posts, but that was the information that was left out of the summary.
In licensed environment, correct?
No, there is no indication of where the events are taking place. You would have to go into the Facebook post and attempt to register, which obviously I'm not going to do for obvious reasons, but someone would have to do that. So that's the information that we have as of today. It is substantiated by Facebook. This person, different from some of the Facebook complaints that we get, I have an address for this individual. The address, I don't know if the address is a shop or a home, but I'm telling you that because the individual did receive a copy of the complaint at the address that was provided. We don't know whether or not the individual received it or not. I can't speak for the respondent, but some of the Facebook posts that we receive complaints on, the complainant is anonymous. We have no way to get in touch with the respondent. We don't have an address, but this board has routinely adopted a $1,000 civil penalty for what the board views as unlicensed activity when people are advertising on Facebook that they are providing services.
This person's a licensed Cosmo or Barber?
No.
Do we know the age of this
respondent
person?
is unlicensed. The respondent is unlicensed, and we received what I would refer to as a consumer complaint. The consumer is not alleging she received the services and this is a bad result. This person is simply notifying us that the respondent is advertising on Facebook that this respondent is basically putting on events whereby she is teaching anyone who wants to come to her event how to do certain cosmetology services.
And charging for that.
As far as we know, yes. But again, I would have to go in and register with Eventbrite to have more information, which I can't do because then I'm making myself a witness.
I mean, is it another high school kid teaching her friends? Do we know this?
Providing a seminar to teach?
Yes. We don't know.
Oh, and they don't have to agree to the $1,000 penalty. They can, at that point, respond and
Okay.
show, this isn't what I meant to do. I was teaching my girlfriends. I really
Gotcha.
don't charge. So they don't have to pay it. This is what the consent order would be.
This is just the
to be
initial,
consistent,
like you're doing
like all our
something wrong.
cases.
Okay.
This $1,000 gets her attention.
Correct.
I got you.
This is usually, well, not usually, the complaint process when we're at this level is sort of akin to what I would refer to as a probable cause hearing. In other words, I'm presenting the facts as they are. Sometimes there's an inspection, sometimes there's an investigation, not all the time. And you all are making a decision based on those facts. Most respondents have an opportunity to respond. They all have an opportunity to respond once they receive my consent order. Sometimes they may persuade me to come back before you, and sometimes they don't persuade me. Obviously, once you vote to approve my recommendations, that is it, and that is where it stands, unless I then determine that there are some facts that we didn't know that are later presented to me that warrant me representing the complaint to you all.
Thank you so much for getting more information.
Oh, no worries. So is the board now prepared to adopt my recommendations? And the only change would be on number 1, we're requesting an inspection. And that was decided at the committee meeting.
I'd make a motion to accept the council's recommendations with the number 1 being adjusted accordingly.
Second.
Thank you.
Motion and a second to accept the legal report. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Thank you. And we did not, with the complaint committee, vote individually as the small committee, so this will be the motion to adopt all of them. Usually we vote twice, so that's perfectly good. I think the only other item that Sherelle and I wanted to bring up is just a quick reminder to the board that we are in full session with bills being introduced. We won't meet again until April. So what we will do, if any bills come before us that impact the industry, we will make sure that you're emailed the information. And if there's anything extra that Sherelle wants to add, we'll have to communicate via email, because by the time we meet in April, anything that is brought before the representatives or senators is likely to move without us knowing. So we will make sure to get those to you. I know, Ms. Coppinger, you're still on board, and I know that you're the expert at this, but I would highly recommend, if the board wants to make sure to stay on top of those, that you sign up, that you look through those, that you put in the keyword barber or cosmetology or whatever you decide for your search. But if we see something that impacts the industry, we will email it to you and communicate that way. Okay.
I don't think I'm the expert, but I do like to keep an eye on it, and I've already been looking at it. And sometimes, well, most of the time I search by subject, cosmetology or barber, but sometimes they're hidden other ways. And so a lot of times, if I have time, I'll just go to different legislators, the state reps, or some of them that have a history of introducing bills in our field, and I will see if they've introduced one. So I've already been looking at it, and yeah, we got to keep an eye on it.
Thank you. And that's all that I have. And Ms. Russell, thank you for running the meeting. You did fantastic on a really hectic meeting. So we appreciate it. I think we're ready to adjourn if you'll take a motion.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
Second. Got a motion and a second to adjourn the meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You are abstaining. Thank you.
Meeting adjourned.
We mess around.
No. I apologize. It's on my calendar.
It's okay.